we have the message, it is a no vote. So when you come up, I ask you, please, we know how you feel, it's all over, we know. Just come up, give us at least 2 things you think we should cut, and we're gonna rip through the list, and we're gonna go. Everything is on the table. Cuts, phase in, increased revenue, maybe, different ways of doing stuff. We all voted on this budget that we presented to you in good faith, that we thought would be passable, clearly not. And just so you know, when people, and I'm gonna try to correct, we will try to correct any misinformation that we hear through the meeting or comes up going through the thing. The first thing I wanna address is when people say they wanna pay no taxes at all, no increased taxes, that means the Board of Finance needs to cut $8 million. So just so you know that, okay? There's no way in hell we're cutting $8 million. We might as well just pack up and move across the river. So bear with us. We're gonna do the best we can with the input that we get, and we're just gonna go down. So I allow anybody to come up and speak for 2 minutes. Shouldn't take 2 minutes to tell me 2 things you wanna cut. Again, I don't wanna go through the rhetoric of what you believe. I've seen it all, we've all seen it all. And your votes clearly have represented your opinions. So, first one up. Any public input? Any public input online?
We have 19 participants.
Can you bring that screen up, Jason?
Is that what you want to see?
Yeah. Well, Kurt has his hand raised.
Kurt, we've asked to have you unmute yourself.
Yep, I'm unmuted, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, 2 minutes, please.
That's great. All right, so my name is Kurt Brace. I live at 47 Elm Street. I'm speaking tonight out of deep concern for both the financial future of Windsor Locks and the well-being of its residents. We all understand that budgets are complex and that services cost money, but transparency must be a non-negotiable part of the process. Right now, many residents feel like they're being left in the dark, facing a sudden 30% tax increase without clear justification, while large commercial property owners are seeing tax relief. That's not sustainable. I'm not here to ask for reckless cuts to education or essential services. We value our schools, police, emergency services, public works, but if the dynamic has changed, and if the burden of funding this town is shifting away from commercial taxpayers and falling squarely on homeowners, then we need to plan a way forward that people can actually afford. Other Connecticut towns have dealt with the same challenge. They phased in reevaluations to protect residents from being hit all at once. We should do the same. It buys us time to.
Kurt, it's been 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
If you
Well,
want,
thank you, and thank you.
If you want, you clearly have written that. If you
Yeah,
would
I'll
like
send
to
it to you.
send it to me, we will attach it to the email, okay? Or to the minutes.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. So to clear up one misconception. Granted, you think commercials are paying less, but you need to realize that every commercial business in this town pays millions and millions and millions of dollars on their personal property. So the hotel pays personal property tax on their beds, their bureaus, offices paying on their computer, their filing. So for anybody to truly say that the commercials are getting a freebie, they're not, because they are paying in other ways. So that's first, another misconception. Any other public comment? Kevin?
Kevin Knapp, 6 West Street. Obviously, you guys talk about these commercial entities paying taxes on all their property, but those are money-making properties. We're not making money on our properties, we're living in our properties. So residents are living at their homes, not making money off their beds and their property in their homes, so that's a huge difference. So if companies are making millions of dollars, they're spending millions of dollars, that's a tax write-off. Where do we get the tax write-off as residents, that we have to support your irresponsible, no accountability, no transparency? And how are we gonna know what the town should cut if we're in a current audit? Like, the town doesn't know what we spent last year. The town doesn't have any of our money rectified because Jason Lathrop is still in an audit.
Okay, again, just talk about what you wanna get from.
I don't care, I can say whatever I want, you're not gonna restrict me.
Well, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, great.
However, I'm asking you to please just tell me
I don't have
something
to,
right there.
I don't have to listen to you, so I can say whatever I want, this is a public input. You guys have already censored me multiple times on this forum, and the minutes do not reflect what I've said. So I request that the minutes that I've said previously be adjusted to what I actually have said, so the town gets full transparency to what has gone on in these meetings. That's all.
Okay, another clarification. Minutes of meetings are not transcription of minutes or meetings. If you wanna hear what the meeting is, it is recorded and placed on the website. Some people film and they record it. But if you want transparency, go on the Facebook or on the website page and listen to
What
the
about people that
audio.
are deaf?
Then you have to request a
No,
transcript.
you don't, it's Title 288.
Okay, end of story. Anybody else have public
It's like
comment?
Article 13.
Go ahead, Mr. Russo.
Ray Russo, 407 Elmwood Drive, Windsor Locks. Let's start with something perhaps positive and referring back to hotels in particular. I think it was proposed once upon a time that we charge the hotels with like a rental fee. And I forget what the exact dollar amount was, but for each room that it's rented, we could charge a tax, which I don't know how much revenue, because I don't know the total rental for the hotels. We could possibly do that. And I'm just not happy. I understand that a lot of the motion is to revow, but I think for Board of Finance to figure that the townspeople are just gonna sign up for that. I'm not signing up for that. And I think that's about it, you know, I'm still perplexed that 300 good townspeople showed up a few years ago and voted to authorize the Board of Finance to seek $32 million in funding. We, the public, were certainly deceived at that time in that there was no way that the senior center could lose a new police department that we just locked together. And I believe that the voters believed that they wouldn't get the new senior center unless they voted for the PD, okay? And I guess I recently found out that the chief of police back then, when he was looking for a new police department, I guess actually spent town funds and was slapped on the wrist. And that's it.
Okay, time's up, thank you. Anybody else have public comment? Anybody else online?
I want to respond to what
Sure.
I said. We wanted to collect taxes on the hotel rooms, but the state won't let us.
Okay.
We asked and the state
won't
said.
allow it?
Yep,
Wow.
yeah. So,
Anybody else online?
So I just got a couple of people that we don't have an address of names or anything, so I'm reticent to let them into the chat.
What do they have?
Initials are triple P, those are, I could let them in, but
Well, yeah. You let them in. I don't want anybody to say we didn't allow anybody in. However, if anything gross comes up, they go off.
so I'll drag drag it over here temporarily, see
Yeah,
what happens.
after the last stuff, yeah. Okay, so the first thing is minutes of the previous meeting approval. So that's the minutes of May 27th. And just so, for the record too, I said we're opening for June 3rd, today is June 5th. So do I have a motion to approve May 27, 2025 minutes?
So moved.
Patty makes a motion, a first, do I have a second?
Second.
Mike, second. Any discussion or problem with them? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Everybody was here, right? No?
Abstain. Not because of-
Con abstains. Okay. So like I said, it's gonna be a work schedule. We will try to answer questions as we go along, that once we have in the back of our mind that people have had a problem with. So, we're gonna start with capital budget. So let me just start by saying, when people voted no on the capital budget, you voted no on something that has no impact whatsoever to your taxes, okay? It's money that comes from the state, it's pay as you go, it's funded different ways. But because the majority of people voted no, we are going to go through the capital list and we are going to cut things out of there that were previously approved. So,
Do we have a motion to approve the capital projects for 9,702,427.11? And then open up discussion.
why did we do that?
Move it to, get it on the,
Oh,
make the motion to, yeah.
all right, go ahead, Con.
Second.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion that we discuss the 9,702,427, the capital budget.
So is it to discuss it, or someone
No,
else to second it?
it's gonna be, yeah, go ahead. Mark seconded it.
Jason, I don't understand, what kind of motion did we need to make for that?
To open up the discussion, we have a motion, a second, and to open discussion.
Well, I thought we would just do the cuts, motion, accept the cuts, or not. Either way, whatever we do.
Well, that comes into two sections, right? We got the $7.7 million for the road bonding, and then we have the regular $2 million.
Right, so when we get to that point, yeah, we'll just have to.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start at the top.
You wanna take a vote on that one? One motion and a second?
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Mike?
Sure.
Unanimous, all right, ready, let's go. First thing, did you wanna bring up the sheet so everybody can see it?
Yes. Can you start sharing on that?
Now, I also want to bring up the point that a lot of the capital bonding part was free money we're getting from the state and other state funded stuff. So if you say we're not gonna fund those, we're throwing money out the window.
Well, they
Just want to be
can-
clear.
Right, but they can vote on that on their second referendum.
So Lori, do you wanna discuss both
Is that
What the-
sharing okay, guys?
Yep, I got it.
what the capitals are and where we were gonna fund them from?
We could do that, sure. So North Street, I can't follow the color coordinated, I have not memorized that off my head.
So unallocated capital is
The orange, okay, all right.
The first one.
I can read it from here. All right, go back up. We're just gonna go right down. And you're gonna zero these out as we do it, right?
Yeah.
And run it down.
I'm gonna revision 0705, and we got two columns, requested and, funded. Right now, like the first one, field replacement was zeroed out. So the first one would be North Street School with a chimney siding.
Okay, Mike,
Out.
Norm,
Out.
Lucinda, Lori, out, Con,
Out.
Patty,
out.
Mark, sorry, Mark. Okay, the oil tank replacement. So, you guys are all gonna have to help. This oil tank thing, all right? It's already in the works, is it not, of removing?
Can I make a recommendation on this, please? I think that should be moved to the selectmen, to hear me out for it. I think that We've got the old safety complex, we can remove the tank there and replace it for the $200,000 and not mess with the bus company. I don't think we're getting a fair deal on it. Yeah, for the $200,000, we can do all that at our safety complex.
And the other line item that we have for the removal,
Yeah, we should
you can take that away.
No, you need that.
Okay.
It's about $250,000, my last calculation was to remove that tank and replace it there
For who?
for the public works, the fire department, the police department, whoever uses gas and oil, or gas and diesel. Instead of trying to combine it with the bus company way at the end of Stanton Road, which is far, far away, and the negotiations from what I can tell is not transparent to what's
So
going on.
you're saying, put a new gas station at the old police station, let the police get another gas?
No.
That would
Just-
be the one.
That would be the one. Replace the one that's at the safety complex now.
Mhm.
Take it out of the ground, put it above ground, so it's DEP approved. You put it right there, and let's forget this double work that we're trying to do with the bus company and it's going on.
I like it, but let's vote on it. Mike?
Out.
Norm? Lucinda? Lori? Out. Con?
Oh.
Patty? Out. Okay. Chromebooks? Michael?
Out.
Norman? Out. Lucinda? Out. Lori? Out. Con?
Oh.
Patty? Out. Okay. The back scanning of land records? Michael?
Out.
Yeah, Norman?
Out.
Lucinda?
Out.
Lori? Out. Con?
How far along is it?
Is he here? No. And out. Okay. All right, so next, we go down to the hydraulic rescue hearse tool. They already have 2 of them, so this is a new one. Michael?
Out.
Norman?
Out.
Lucinda? Lori? Out. Con? Patty? In? Okay. The scuba bottle replacements, Mike?
In.
Norman?
In.
Lucinda? Lori? In. Con?
In.
Patty? In. All right, we're unanimous, thank God. All right. Police vehicle, Michael?
Out.
Norman?
Out.
Lucinda? Lori? Out. Con?
Oh.
Mark, oh, God, I keep forgetting Mark, sorry, Mark. Okay.
You forgot me.
Patty, I'm sorry.
Out.
Patty's out, okay. Okay. No read restorations.
Oh, sorry about this one.
Well, okay. No read restorations and no read, well, that one's, no read restorations. So that's for the barn. That was gonna be paid with LoSAP. So just to remind everybody, okay, according to the will of Gladys Reed, if that property is not maintained or the barn is not maintained, to the point where it falls down, the town loses that property and we revert it to the next person in line. So, no read, Michael,
In.
Norm,
In.
Lucinda,
LoSiP, right?
yeah, LoSiP,
In.
Lori, and Con,
In.
Patty, in, okay. Next one,
By the way, the other ones that we were talking about, the green ones?
Yep.
That's fund balance, correct?
Yep.
We didn't talk about that.
Green is interest, capital fund, CIP, fund balance.
okay. All right, where are we now? Park and Rec. Are we?
You're in,
Park and Rec
down
had
to
nothing.
public works equipment.
Okay, public works equipment. Stand on lawnmowers, 2, Mike,
Out.
Norm.
Out.
Lucinda. Lori, out. Con. Patty. Out. 2 turn mowers. Michael.
Out.
Norm.
Out.
Lucinda. Lori, out. Con. Patty. Out. All right. 6 wheel,
So you gotta have,
yeah. The recording, if you can't hear, come up front, okay? All right, 6-wheel plow truck, why is it listed here?
because it's 2 different places of funding.
Yeah, most of the funding is coming from, town aid bills.
That's
Okay.
part of money, it's state.
So we're gonna just vote on the whole mess, all right? The 6, because it doesn't matter where it's being funded, right? 6-wheel plow truck, Mike,
Out.
Norm,
Out.
What's the number? Lori out, Patty in, all right, Patty.
I mean, it's tar money that we'll lose if we don't use it, right? It'll stay in the fund balance for tar, roll over to the next one. But it's not like it's gonna help with anything.
So the town aid road fund balance is $1.2 million right now. So it would be 1.2 plus 50% of, it would be up to around $1.4 million of town aid road balance.
And that money, Jason, does that money have to be directed toward spending which is related to roads and?
Yeah, town aid road is typically split 50-50. A portion of it goes into the town aid road fund, which has a fund balance of $1.2 million, and the other piece of it sits in revenue, in our revenue budget here, in our general fund.
So
And
by-
we have expenses that offset that. Any expense we have associated with maintaining our roads is the expense associated.
So by rejecting the building of this truck, or the buying of this truck, are we able to reduce our tax rate?
No, it's not true.
It can't reduce the tax rate, so we're just letting the money sit there. We can't apply it to other spending to reduce the tax rate.
As most of these things on this list are
Yeah.
not impacting the tax rate, these are just
So-
reductions.
So what we're doing is postponing spending, the money can't be used for anything else. So we wind up just letting a pool of money sit there. Multiple pools, without, it really doesn't make sense. We really oughta, that money is there, it can't be used for anything but these things. We oughta spend it. And then get down to stuff that actually affects the mill rate. Because this stuff doesn't affect the mill rate.
Other than the bond.
So, can we make a motion to, let me ask, does anybody, if we made a motion to leave that piece alone, because it doesn't affect our mill rate, would there be an objection to that?
I was actually gonna ask for
Here's
that.
the,
I was actually gonna ask for that. We could focus on the things that were going to impact the actual.
yeah, but I have to go through everything that's on the agenda. That's why I'm just banging through. If I thought there was all no
Resounding
votes.
no vote to the capital budget.
This is question number 2, is it not?
Yes.
The vote was yes, 473 people, no, 1,041.
While I understand that, it's not that I'm talking back here, are you mad?
No,
Okay. Well, I want to be respectful, but while I understand that, I'm fairly confident that perhaps many folks weren't aware of that portion.
that's true, and now they will be educated.
Oh, okay.
They are now educated.
Okay, so may I ask?
So the people who put on, respectfully, people who put on Facebook, when you go back, you make sure you correct your misinformation, that when you said vote no on question 3, it had nothing to do with your taxes. Nothing.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Will there be any opportunities to perhaps put some of these capital items back in?
We'll see how we'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Miss, I don't have Facebook, but, the ballot wasn't clear about what
Okay.
what went where, so
Well, you know
people
what,
don't know.
if anybody else has any more questions, let's save them to the end, okay? And we'll try to address it, again, we have a website page.
But what I'm saying is the reason you got voted no on this number 2 was because people didn't understand what number 2 applied to.
And
They
that's
just
why,
went right down the list.
the town hall is available 5 days a week. And we met 2 days in the last 5-6 months, so we gotta get this done, I'm sorry, all right. We get it, very painful. We get it, Tom, it's very painful.
Gasoline tank removal safety complex.
Mike,
In.
Norm,
I don't know how that can be in when you don't have a replacement for it.
We don't have one.
A replacement for it, that's the only way we can get fuel currently. So if we remove that, you have something in its place.
Norm, wait. Mike,
It's gotta be removed, right? Something's gotta be removed.
But you gotta have a replacement for it, so you can get fuel from somewhere, or we're gonna go to Valero.
Jason,
Valero, you have a compliance issue with the state of Connecticut. You leave that in, probably will incur legal expenses. You take it out, you find.
you guys, I'm sorry, but you have to be quiet during the meeting, I'm sorry.
So with the removal of the tanks to be compliant with the state of Connecticut, the goal was to have the tank that was voted out up above as a replacement. The only other alternate is to wheel all of the equipment through Public Works, which is technically possible, but I'm not sure it's the most prudent course of action, but I'm not sure you wanna not remove the tank based upon compliance with the state of Connecticut. There is an alternate, and it's an alternate that will impact that public works facility, but, you know, it already got voted out up above. From a compliance standpoint, this is gotta happen.
Mike,
And
Norm, Lucinda,
And
Lori, and Todd?
This is the tank issue?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Patty?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one down is, this is the erosion and the sedimentation of Spring Park.
This is low SIP funding.
This is for that.
Behind,
The boggle behind Phil's.
Yeah. I know.
it's off of Spring Park.
It's not in Spring Park, it's on that property. Michael?
And
Norm? Lucinda?
Lucifer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Lori and Todd? Patty and, okay. Renovate irrigation systems. Mike?
out.
Norm?
Out.
Lucinda? Dominic? Todd? Patty? All right. Engineering, Michael?
So just a quick, can I ask a quick question before?
Yep.
Does this engineering relate to the bonding work?
Well, even if it does relate to the bond, I do not believe we should stop the engineering, because at some point, somebody's gonna realize Spring Street's not getting paved, and they're gonna want it paved after this next referendum, so we're gonna need it. So engineering,
And
Norm,
And
Pat, or Lucinda, Lori, and Con,
In.
Patty, all right, next one down, all right. So now this all has to do with the bonding, so can we just stop here for a minute? Go to question, where's our thing? Question 4. So, there was 811 no's on question 4 and 719 yeses. Again, this does not affect your taxes at all. Question 4 says, shall the town appropriate $7,755,000 for 226 for roadway infrastructure improvements, including sanitary sewer, drainage, parking, sidewalks, green infrastructure improvements, and authorize the issue of bonds, notes, and same amount to finance the appropriation. Before anything goes to bonding, and this has been said in public meetings before, whenever we do a road project, we use the money we already have in our capital line, right?
No, we pay for it.
Right, we pay for it. Then we reimburse ourselves with bonding. So on here, we had St. Mary's, Jubilee Lane, and Spring Street. The reason why Jubilee Lane and St. Mary's was on there, and again, if you have attended the meeting, you would have heard that, when they do the road work up on Spring Street, to get the equipment here costs a fee. So if we do all of Spring Street, and then we go, oh, can we go back and do St. Mary's, Town Hall? We have to pay again. So wouldn't it be kinda nice to put it all together and say, let's just do the roads that extend off of Spring Street?
Waterworks stuff.
No, that's upstairs.
Um, So, you guys voted no. So, that's all coming out, because we are going to cross off, next time you get the election, you will not see this fourth question. Not at all. So when you drive down Spring Street and you're bumping along, know that it's nowhere in line right now to get fixed.
In the town hall parking lot?
And the town hall parking lot. If you wanna know what roads were scheduled and have not been done for whatever godforsaken reason, I have that list. It has been provided on the January 28th, 2025 Board of Finance minutes. If you wanna know what roads were approved and still haven't been done, that's where you will get that information. So, I'm assuming these are all out, so we're gonna go roadwork, bonding. St. Mary's, Mike,
Out.
Drury Lane,
Out.
all of it. Norman, Patty, Lucinda, Lori, Allen, John?
Yeah, may I just
Yes, you may.
say one thing? You know, here we are again, we're cutting a sum out that has absolutely no impact whatsoever on this 3% tax increase. And we tried to explain this to people at the annual town meeting and at the public hearing for the budget, but very, very few people attended. And so I think generally, most of the people who voted don't understand what's driving the increase that we're all horrified to see, including us. But I think we have no choice but to just knock these things out. So when the next vote occurs, people will say, well, at least they responded, I voted no on that, and they took it out. What else can we do?
You can ask a question at the end, okay?
It's not a question.
Well, whatever, it's not, you can't talk during the meeting, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Unless you can't hear and you need to sit forward or something.
I am hearing there, I can hear just fine.
Alright, so question 4 will be off of, oh, Patty.
Out.
Okay. Conjure me off.
So those, the 4 green ones?
Out. Town hall parking lot, yeah.
Right, that's, did I miss that?
Yeah, no. Yeah, what's that?
So we're down to, the 2 TIF district fund balance and 1 more,
Okay, so we want to save the TIF stuff when we actually do the TIF budget. Do we want to save the TIF capitals for when we want to actually do?
But there is this capital item.
Oh, all right, well, that's true. All right, here we go. Main Street Capital, 50,000. Mike?
In.
Norm?
staying.
Lucinda? Lori is, oh, because that comes out of TIF. I'm in. Con?
In.
Patty? In. Okay, the radio infrastructure, 125,000. Mike?
Out.
Norm?
Out.
Lucinda? Why would we do out, can I ask you?
As a former petitioner, 12, 13 years ago, I was called the other side, no meant no. And today, no still means no,
Okay.
regardless of how I voted. So I'm trying to be respectful. I understand I did vote yes on a couple of things.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, directionally, I'm trying to be respectful to the literally 1,000 voters that came out and voted no. And I know, because I was there 12, 13 years ago, it was me running around with a petition getting signatures. So I get it, so I'm just trying to be respectful to all those that came out and voted no, this time around.
Okay, radio, then I'm out. Con? Patty's in. All right, Patty's in. Town hall renovations. Mike?
Out.
Norm?
Out.
Lucinda? Lori out. Con?
Out.
Patty? Out. All right. So our capital budget, we gotta make a motion now.
He's doing, making sure the calculations are right.
Yeah, I gotta find my paper anyway. That's the number? So I make a motion. Should I read it like this? I'm gonna, like the referendum budget. Shall the town capital budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30, 2026 in the amount of $899,126.11 recommended by the Board of Finance be approved. I make that first motion. Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, no. Meg, you got the number right? Oh, well, that's all right, as long as. Yeah, all right. So now we're gonna go up to, shall the town's operating budget for fiscal year July 21st, 2025 to 26 in the amount of $61,877.64. 61 million, yeah. I make the motion that we discuss, revise, and, change. Do I have a second? Second. Patty seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So just for the record, 477 people voted for it, 1,042 did not. When you look at the budget that we put forth,
Lori, just a point of information, would you like me to address or bring up the revenue sheet first or the expense sheet?
With the revenue changes, does it?
no, we'll do that after. You don't want it, can we do it after? Right, what we change?
On revenues.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple things.
Well, can we address let's get to where the places of that particular department, like Pete's, or whatever we're gonna cut, and then bring Pete in, or bring in the assessor.
Okay.
I don't wanna get bogged down in all the, cause people can talk for us. So, let me just find my budget here.
We do like assessment appeals and go through them.
Yeah, we're gonna go through one at a time.
We're not doing line items, we're just doing dollar amounts.
We're just gonna go department, you want to cut? There's something you wanna cut in there, you say yes, no, maybe so.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification.
I just want to get the dollar amount. So, last year, in our annual budget that you all adopted, you agreed to pay $59,093,728. From what I've gathered through the grapevine, nobody wants to have an increase. The increase went from 59 million to 61,877,064. That is a difference of, Michael, fast, Michael,
Like 1.3 million?
1.3
No,
million.
2.7.
All right, so you basically have voted that you want us to cut out of the 61 million, 2.7 million. So, hold on to your hats, here we go. Board of Assessment Appeals, does anybody want to cut anything out there?
$100,000.
No. Mike?
No.
Norm? Lucinda? Lori, no. Con? Patty, yeah, whatever your name is, Patty, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so, this capital improvement allocation, this, well, it's in the list.
Number 2 BOEs.
Oh, BOE, oh, I forgot somebody double-sided this. BOE, Mike,
So I guess the question is there anything that we can cut? I don't know. I mean, based on a memo that got produced today, I'm not sure, it was a little murky, we just got it.
The numbers at MBR.
So, I don't know, if there's nothing to cut, then I guess the answer is no. If there is stuff to cut, then yeah, let's talk about it, because if the goal, the objective is to cut 2.7 million, and the Board of Education is not available to help with that goal, then it just becomes exponentially harder.
So what that memo said today, and I think we all understood it, that talked about money that was allocated in prior years, not what's in the budget this year, correct? What did we allocate this year to the health service?
Well, that's not really part of the budget.
So, in the fiscal year 26 budget, we allocated roughly $4.5 million in fiscal year 26, that's sitting on the town side.
Okay, but, however, some of that we had already given them in prior years.
Correct.
Again, based on that legal opinion, how much did we add to what we gave them in prior years this year? Because it seems to me, and Sean and Kylie can speak to that, it seems to me what that legal opinion said was, you can't take away what you gave them before without replacing it. But we haven't given them this year.
Well, I thank you for that explanation.
That's my,
Education.
that's my read of it.
That was my reading.
All right.
Patty, I think it's the bottom number, it's just the total amount of dollar amount that you give the Board of Education on an annual basis. So if it's 30 million last, this current fiscal, you have to provide 30 million the next.
That's the MBO. I'm not disputing that, Kylie. The legal opinion talked about the health reimbursement money. That's why it was asked, if I'm not mistaken. And it says if we were gonna take anything away, we can't take it away unless if we already provided it. So we provided in the past, not the whole 4.5 billion. We provided less than that. So that we couldn't take away. But anything that we were proposing to add to it this year, we absolutely could take it away. You would have to work with your MBR. Because if we took it away, you have to pay for it somehow.
100% understood.
Okay. And I wanted to make sure I was understanding it correctly. Sean says no.
But
Speak to it, Sean.
So I spoke to legal counsel, and it's by category, so it's not a dollar amount. So what the legal advice in the example, there are 3 paragraphs there. The last paragraph outlines specifically. So you can't add an expense back to the Board of Education because of MBR without raising the number. If you do, you run the risk of a 2 times potential violation, which in this case, if it's 815, you're talking a $1.6 million issue for the town.
But we're not adding all of the expense.
It's by category, because I asked that exact question.
I think your attorney might be swayed, because I think the 2.5 is in question.
It's new.
It's new. Okay, you get the 34 million, but now you're gonna have to pay 2.5 of that towards medical, if that's the reason why I gotta go. No, we'll let the lawyers figure it out. But that was not in your budget last year. We're giving you exactly what you had in your budget last year. So.
And I'm not saying, Sean, that I'm in favor of doing that.
Yeah, me neither.
But
I'm
if
just
we
telling
have-
you what legal
Yep,
counsel said.
yep, so if we have to cut,
Mark's point,
I
if
wanna
that's what you wanna
understand
do, then
No, what I
the
wanna do
lawyers
is.
can talk about
No, what
that,
I
because
wanna
I
do is
don't.
get further legal opinion. So I would like to have another legal opinion based on this. Because if we're being asked to cut all this money, I wanna know whether we can or cannot cut from the Board of Education budget.
The only thing that's in question is medical.
So, we're skipping. So would that be just the Board of Ed for now?
We can go back.
I think-
Mike's got.
No, I want the conversation, but the budget, I mean, it's gotta be wrapped up. If not tonight, it has to be wrapped up tomorrow. Because, you need 5+ days to provide a finalized budget for the public to review. So I guess another legal opinion is a great idea, but do we realistically have the time to get that? I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to make sure that we can stay within the deadlines.
Explain this deadline to me.
First time hearing this, so first opportunity I have to speak.
Right. Well, there's referendums every 2 weeks.
Is that's mandated in
Yeah,
us?
yeah, and that doesn't mean that we have up until the night before the vote to finalize the budget. I think there's rules, whether it's charter or state statute, that says the new budget that's gonna be proposed has to be available, produced in the clerk's office, whatever, at least, I think it's at least 5 business days before the vote. So there's not, I'm not saying it's gotta be done right this hour, but there's not really a lot of time to turn the budget around.
What
It's a no.
proportion of the, total budget is the board of ed?
68%.
60 plus?
Yeah.
60 plus, so we need to cut 2.1 million,
7,
2.7 million?
something like that.
Let's cut 60% or 68% of that off the school budget.
We're gonna go below MBR.
Is that good?
I think he's
Yes,
saying.
we're,
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
at MBR right now.
He's saying on medical.
I'm talking medical only. The 34 stays the same, it's the medical, when we look at medical insurance, we have to have that part of the conversation. So there was 2.5 million above and beyond what we gave them last year, trying to make them whole.
So, what we're talking about, I mean, it hasn't been awarded. Right. Well, right, so, I think we go forward with your suggestion. And that is also, we can take that money and pay.
Well, we'd have to,
You make it.
it had to come from the state or something. Because lawyers, like, you know what, have opinions and they're all different.
But to Mike's point, if we have to cut and we have to decide tonight, then I don't wanna take the chance of having a 2-for-1 penalty.
What does that mean?
That's the penalty if we, try to take it away and we're not supposed to.
If you violate MBR, anything, every dollar amount will go to get.
Well, we've already taken it away and left them with the MBR.
But there is, I think in that letter somewhere, I think it said that the penalty is only if there's not immediate corrective action or something like that.
Yeah.
So my point is only in the essence of time. If we were to reduce some of that medical insurance or some of that whatever, $4 million, and then we find out through whoever that, hey, our understanding was incorrect, we'd have to put it back. So there's corrective action, fix it, I think, if I'm reading the letter correctly. So in other words, it's just, we just gotta, in other words, can we reduce it by whatever the number is, 1.3 or whatever, out of our 2.7? And move on, or do we say, no, we'll just go into the downside? In the interest of trying to wrap the overall budget up so we can get back up to a focus.
Just to clarify for the public that may be listening, if we talk about MBR, that's a state requirement that there's a minimum budget requirement for the schools. And so we're at it, and that's why you just can't slash the school spending. And we're looking at this insurance, which we were putting out to the town as a way to reduce the budget without violating the minimum budget requirement. So we're kind of stuck on that.
Well,
That's a state law.
There's another way we can look at this. If we go back to the Board of Ed's original proposal, not the one we approved, but their original proposal, that was $39 million. Okay, so if we agree to their budget at 36 million and they still pay all the medical, it does the same thing. Right, Michael? Because right now, we go back to the original budget that they requested they gave us.
That just increases the taxes.
That's more, right, that's more than what's there now. Yeah, no, that.
The original budget, that was 39.
Right.
If we agree to 36, and they pay everything else that's on that, we don't take the medical, we're still above MBR, and they have to figure out how to pay the medical. That's all I'm stating. There's two ways to skin that cat. Legally. Okay, so if we go off the original proposal, we tried to help by moving stuff around. Maybe shame on us, but I mean, there's another way to look at it.
So now, are you saying now, just like, that we can't take that money?
I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. That's what I was trying to clarify before we make any move.
But we gave them, what, $1.4 million last year within their budget for medical expenses. Right, and we had to increase it by 2.5, that's what the increase was. And that's how we tried to absorb that.
So you're saying we take out the 2.5, give them the budget,
And they can figure out a case.
and they request, and we've got to find the 2.5.
As requested.
No, we take what they requested and say, well, we're only gonna give you X amount of dollars for that. And then they'd have to come up with how they're gonna meet.
I don't like that, to me, that's like, I don't like that at all.
It increases MBR, but it,
I don't even like, it increases the MBR, but then we're gonna turn around and tell them, you've got a cut? That to me is
you gotta tell them to cut anyways.
not necessarily.
When you gotta get $2.7 million in 30% or 28 or 25% of the budgets, the rest of the town, you're cutting most of the people's budgets by 30%.
Or revenue, add revenue.
You can add revenue, but if the revenue's not there, all you're doing is setting ourselves up.
We don't know if it's there.
All right, so I will make a suggestion, can we just leave it the way it is? We know the next referendum is going to fail. In the meantime, he can do whatever he's gotta do to get us the information, to make sure we cannot do whatever the heck it is.
Okay?
Laura, I think the only thing that, and we'll have to get legal approval or counsel on this, but from where I read, the way I read it, I believe the only thing that you would have available to potentially cut would be anything that you have deemed projected for fiscal '26 that has failed.
Correct.
Right, so if you projected to give us $654,000 for medical for this coming fiscal, you could potentially remove that and we would have to cut the budget by $654,000.
Absolutely, that's what I was saying.
I believe that that's absolutely the case. I know that you're under a time crunch, but, you know, I don't know, we can talk about it after the meeting, but that sounds completely logical to me as well.
So if we, as Laura just said, if we left this as is right now, changed nothing, and then we further explore that.
Yep,
If the referendum passes, great.
yep.
If it doesn't pass, we'll have more information.
Yep.
At that point, you know what we can
That's
or
correct.
can't do.
That's correct. Yep.
Mike, oh boy, look at Mike's
Well, no,
face.
I guess I agree with Patty, whatever, you know, it seems like a reasonable plan. The problem is gonna come when we get to the next 20 budgets, right?
Yep.
Because we're gonna be looking for 2.7 million and we're gonna be bored down cuts and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But that's-
Absolutely.
that's-
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's my.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm okay with the plan.
We're still $6 million short though. But anyways, Mike, Board of Ed,
I guess for now, we're gonna leave it, right?
Norm, Lucinda,
Clarification comment, right?
Lori, I'm leaving it, Con,
Yeah, leave it.
Patty. Okay. Next. Oh no.
So, why don't we go to the big meeting? Why don't we just get some of the big meetings?
Okay.
Rather than waste our time on the historic society.
Well, we can just skip, I just wanna make sure it goes, we just hit every one. Transparency.
No, I was gonna make, let's make the motion that we eliminate the garbage collection and make it private.
All right.
Well,
What budget's that under?
That's first, that's Board of Selectmen.
All right, so the next biggest budget?
Public Works.
He said it's public works, Laura. Right, Jason? Stay with yours. Stay with yours.
Public Works, that's that?
Board of Selectmen. Likely.
Oh, okay. Which number is that?
4.
Thank you. Yeah, that's understandable.
Page 7 of the side sheets.
Landfill refuge collection? 1.3 million?
Yeah.
So what would get cut if we went to pay, they have to pay themselves?
So I think nothing would necessarily get cut in this budget. All of the line items in this section, with the exception of the last one, relate to garbage / recycling / municipal waste, all the stuff that we're talking about. If we're talking about quote unquote privatizing that, I don't think we cut anything here. I think there's gotta be an additional component where you're charging the residents, so it's a revenue component, it's a billing function. I guess the closest thing I could think of, may not be a good example, but the WPCA fees, right? I mean, there's a bill that goes out every year to all the homeowners, right? Maybe one or two commercial properties, but I don't know, but anyway, it would have to be a situation like that, so to Con's point, you're not really cutting the expense, but you're adding revenue, but it still moves the needle in terms of the tax rate, which is to me, the prevailing issue that's out there.
Is that the way they do it in a private way in other towns? Town contracts work and then assesses the.
No, I think the problem that we have here is, the prior selectmen signed a 10-year contract with these people. I don't think we have enough information to decide whether we can, cancel that contract, but we can take it off and then have them pay. But we would still make a payment from the town hall.
So
Does that satisfy your?
But you're adding another
suggestion?
tax.
No.
Yeah, well, see, now you've got a collection problem.
Right, well, that's why the collector's here.
How to tax that fee?
Can't write it off tax.
Yeah, but how do you apportion, WPCA is based on water usage. Okay, so how do you apportion that? Some people are putting 10 garbage bills out, some are only putting one or the other way.
Same company's doing it.
So it's not a portion, so it's
Right.
one set fee across the board. I'm just stating.
All right, Mike,
So that's one point.
I guess,
are you gonna,
Yeah.
you have a sheet where we can start, all these guys wanna skip over the short little budgets.
So, this is the selectmen's budget, we're not talking about eliminating the landfill or refuse collection. That's being taken up on the revenue sheet, but you asked me to start on the expense sheet. Do we wanna jump over to the revenue sheet?
Well, why don't we go through the rest of the selectmen's budget to see if there's anything else we wanna cut? Okay, maybe that should be a task. So, anybody off the top of your head can think of anything you wanna cut?
well, if we think it's 2.7 million,
Mhm.
there's a whole host of things, right?
Well, let's go, Mike.
Well, I mean, outside of the garbage, there's raises for non-union personnel, there's stipends, there's individuals with more than 2 people in a department,
Okay, this is what you know that, and I know it's just nickel and diamond, but at that point, we're at that point, nickel and diamond, or we will be at some point. You know that summer help people that come in, so they can go on vacation? When you have 2 people in the office and one goes and they need that should go.
Okay, fine.
And I think the stipend should go.
Well, that just means that you'll reduce the hours in that department based on availability of employees.
Cannot
That's
people
okay.
take turns going to lunch? Is that a new concept? If 2 people are in the same office, you can't take turns and go to lunch, so the office stays open 8 hours?
As an example, what if you give it an assistant town clerk?
But we haven't gotten that far yet.
We would just say a reduction of salary and wages on the selected.
Or maybe we have a building sub, 1 person. Not every department has a person. Like the school, they have a building sub.
It works. I'm in.
Why don't we take the total raise of the selectmen's department, just 5%, let the selectmen work out.
Can you do that? You can't do that.
I can't do that, because again, the budget needs to be published in some level of detail. I mean, the Board of Selectmen, there's hundreds of maybe thousands of accounts that I think have to get sort of finalized. by tonight, maybe tomorrow at the latest, to push forward.
Suggestion is you could take the salary and wage line and say cut it by 5%. Now, that's definitive, because it's a line item.
Right, but it can only be, I think it can only be the non-union, right? The unions are contractual, that were bargained in good faith.
Incorrect. They can do layoffs.
Oh, okay, no, agree. I thought you were just saying, cut by 5%. I agree.
No, just cut his budget. He's gotta figure out if it raises, unions make concessions, or he's gonna have to do it.
We gotta make that decision.
No.
You don't have time. You don't have time to send it back to them.
No, we don't send it back. We just say, you have a 5% cut. Boom.
No. How can we present the budget that people can vote on by saying that without having it be finalized?
You'll never get there.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
Well, you can't.
We have to try.
Not if you're gonna wait for all these other people to actually give them their input.
We're not asking.
Nobody gets any input.
We're making the cuts.
We're in referendum, right? Right, Carl?
It seems crazy that we can't have the agencies themselves make the cuts and advise us, but we're saying that the time frame is too tight.
Well, if you go to the board of selectmen, you're gonna have to have a meeting, they have to publish the meeting, right? Then they come back here, and then we have to have another special meeting.
They just give us a cause and effect. Just keep saying, I'm taking 5% from your salary and wage. They're gonna come up with a cause and effect of what that does, that will give out during a referendum. How hard is that, people? It isn't. You say 5% reduction. All they have to do is, when it comes up, here's what the effect is gonna be to the town. I gotta get rid of 3 people, you're gonna lose services here. I mean, if not, we're never gonna get there, because we're not smart enough to go in each one of these guys' budgets and figure out what we can take.
We don't have to be smart enough. And I accept this and say that. But we can, that's how it happens sometimes.
Right.
You get to the last minute, you have to make cuts.
Right?
Sorry. Other than the landfill, what else in the selectmen's office budget?
I gave you 3 things, the union, the non-union raises,
Oh, yeah, the
the
raises.
stipends, you know, I don't know, these people that have 2 or more, people that have more than 2 people, departments that have more than 2 people, these are just ideas, right? They're just ideas. If we like them, let's roll with it. If we don't like them, let's move on. Or throw something else out. I mean, there's raises for non-union employees of 5%. Are we good with that? Or are we not good with
That
that?
was $94,000.
86,000.
I make the motion.
I mean, if we're good with it, if there's consensus, then we got it done. Right, stipends, you want to take those out?
Yeah.
So what specific stipends are we talking about?
I only know of 2. IT, which Lucinda says they call Novus directly, and, that Everbridge. But, well, we don't wanna do the firemen, because they get stipend, so that's all.
So the selectmen stipends, that's the stipends for the other 2 selectmen. Like this
Right,
line
yeah,
item.
yeah.
So they would be,
First, you mentioned to do that.
I'm gonna take out stipends.
Not when somebody's been elected.
No, these people are employees.
So it wouldn't be the selectmen select.
no, we were saying that's not,
That's
not
not
talking
included.
about. I mean, we could take them out, it's not gonna move the needle whatsoever.
Office of, safety management, but a stipend is $21,000. The whole position is a stipend. Fixed position.
The two stipends that you, I think you're referring to, there's one, there's an IT stipend in finance for $3,000 on line 22. Still within the selectmen's budget. And the only other stipend along those lines sits in the Everbridge support, which is within the Office of Emergency Management. You had discussed taking a look at salary and wages, temporary.
Office of Emergency Management salary and wage stipend, $21,000. That's a stipend.
Well, so is what the selectmen get, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's an elected position. This is not a-
You can't get rid of the emergency
If
guy.
you took the emergency management director position, we might have some compliance problems. I mean,
I'm just thinking, you guys said stipends, I'm just pointing out where the stipends are. That's all I'm doing.
I know, that's fine.
so.
You guys are saying one thing, but you're not doing it all across the board.
Yeah. The only one along those lines that you had mentioned, I found the two lines that you guys had discussed. Laura, you had mentioned taking a look at, salary and wage temp.
Yep.
All those line items were taken out.
Ooh, they were.
You know, if you take a look at here, you see that
Yeah,
temp
we already did
employees, that went out, the first cut that were made,
Oh, yeah.
first cuts that were made by the select.
I must have dove during that one.
There's no go to emergency one. We're talking about reductions in force. Are there comments related to that?
Okay, well, you got, part of that is you got the assessor's office, finance office, legal, oh, that legal thing.
So the legal services that we increased up to 45,000 from the 36. That was just because we said that there was gonna be an increase.
That was a proposal made by the town attorney.
You said cut it to 20 grand?
It was 36.
It's been 36 for the last 4 or 5 years.
Go back to Thursday.
Yeah, put the bite on. We'll just reduce it.
We can reduce it even more, that's it. We can put it back to 20.
Okay, information technology. We didn't go up on that? Or we ready to go up on that? Okay. Building official.
So wait, go back to information
Oh,
technology.
sorry.
What are those increases?
One second. Are we waiting to make a motion at the end, or we going on?
Yes.
All right. We have a proposal from our current IT, vendor, which is, Novus Insight. They had requested an increase up to $120,300, and we told them no. And we said, hey, we can discuss a nominal increase, which delivered that $96,582. We've got increased software licensing, associated with, probably a variety of different packages. You know, the general supplies was reduced on the tech equipment, based upon, the use of the grant in the current year.
Are any of that $74,000 got to do with this new software that is not happening on a timely basis?
The new software is on track.
I thought you said we had 30 days of no response from, and then you had no other.
And based upon, our feedback to the management of the company, we've had a great week, a tremendous week. Just getting set, we've got our training set for staff on June 26th with the go live on July 1st. So,
Are we trying to?
Okay, under building inspector, where it says training, is that state mandated training?
the assumption would be yes, but I think that would be a question for Mark. I'm not sure what the required training is, I apologize.
Okay, general government, dues and fees. I guess we can't do anything with that.
It's
Special
a membership to CCM.
Okay. All buildings.
Yeah, we took that
Oh,
down by,
what's the temporary utilities?
it's zero.
I know, but what has it been? What was it?
Yeah, there
Not that
was-
it matters, I thought you might know. off the top of
There
your
were
head.
small amounts there.
Yeah.
We have, I think, 19 different meters across the town. Maybe it was if they needed a temporary electrical for a project or something like that, or, they needed a power pole somewhere to be able to do some work to it. But right now, that's zeroed out.
Yeah. All right, town hall.
This is a maintainer right here. The salary is the maintainer. Alarm is the alarm services for our 3 Node and Read Barn, and,
Train station?
train station.
Okay, senior citizen center. So here's my question. On the senior citizen center of the police station, if we do not pass a budget for 2026, which includes the new senior citizen center and the new police department, and we have to work on a 25-year budget, what and how does that affect the opening of those 2 buildings? I would say we'd have to postpone it until we got a budget, correct?
Well, I know at some point Downs Construction will turn the building over to us. We can't say no at that time from a maintenance standpoint, right? Like, they're gonna say, hey, we're done, we're no longer covering the utilities or the, whatever it might be. So, I don't think you can avoid the utilities piece of things. I mean, in the senior center building, the existing senior center building, you have some maintenance costs, assuming that you still support that building for
I
a
would say
portion
no
of
to
the
that.
year. And then the balance of this is, like, I don't think,
Well, it's not a matter of avoiding it, Jason. If we are working off the 25 budget, it's not in there. We don't have a line item to pay utilities for the new building.
that is true. And, you would be adopting a budget of, that would have, $59 million worth of expenses, and the hope would be that a budget would get passed with those utilities, and, if we're operating on the prior year budget, that we not overexpend that budget. The assumption is we would be good for several months if we appropriated dollars associated with $59 million. And, I think there are really two pieces of that. One is what revenue you can collect and what's the process used to collect the revenue. And then the other piece of it is how do you operate, working with department heads as to what they can or cannot spend, right? So, I believe from an operational standpoint, the, departments would be operating with last year's budget of approximately 59,093, 728 from an expense standpoint. And, the selectmen would have to adopt a mill rate to be able to begin revenue collections.
I thought the mill rate was based on the budget that we originally proposed. And the budget would be set at 21.77. The bills would go out, but they'd be amended once the budget's approved for the second mailing.
And I think the Board of Selectmen would work in conjunction with the Board of Finance to determine what that mill rate would be.
Hey, Pete, can you clarify this for us, please? No,
in the-
stop.
In the chart.
I want Pete to tell me what it is.
I'm sorry, what was the?
We have to send out tax bills July 1st by state law. What would be the mill rate that you would assess on that mill rate, on the tax bill?
I believe the statute says the selectmen set a budget, set an amount. So you wouldn't use necessarily typically they would because of there's not a big disparity. But if you did it this year using the 28.14 at the increased assessments, you would be billing out way too much, and you would then be creating a situation where there'd either be a ton of refunds at some point, or you would have to, the key would be that there'd be just a reduction of the second half bills. But if you send it out at that kind of amount, chances are you'd be creating a lot of refunds, because even the first installment might be more than, typically would be. But the statute, I believe, says that they set a mill rate to cover the expenses of the town, I believe. That's what I believe it says.
And that should be based off the current assessment of properties.
Based on, I think, last year's budget, I think, or the budget we're in right now.
But you can't use the assessment of last year, you gotta use the new assessment.
Yeah, I believe so, because it's this year's
So
bill.
if you use a 28 mill rate, your taxes would be way higher than they should be if you use the 21.7.
Correct, yeah. It would be astronomical, really.
My understanding was we already set it at 21.7, the tax bill goes out at that. Once we have an approved budget, whatever that mill rate gets adjusted to, the secondary bill gets reduced or increased, most of it reduced by that amount. That's how other towns have done it.
You gotta sorry.
There's no prescriptive language other than the Board of Selectmen sets the rate in conjunction with the Board of Finance, Mark. Right?
I just told you why it'd be stupid if we went with last year's mill rate.
I think it would be way too high, but.
I don't think anybody thought we were gonna go with last year's mill rate. We have to go with last year's expense. And in last year's expense, we had no expense for the new senior citizen center, nor the new police station. That's the point.
That was the point, yeah.
Okay. But if you look at the senior citizen building, all those expenses are there, whether it's at the old place or the new place, other than gas and electricity. Is that a fair statement? That means the only increase is $20,000. Because you still gotta pay salary and wages, you still gotta do testing equipment, you still got building maintenance, no matter which building you're at. I mean,
They would just have to charge the expenses, both old and new, to the old, because there isn't line items for new ones yet,
Right.
because we haven't set that budget.
right.
They must have some moving costs, but they didn't include them in their requests.
The moving costs are covered in the project budget. The vendor Syracuse Moving and Storage out of Britain was retained underneath state contract, and moving dates have been slightly adjusted in the project based upon the paving schedule. Paving company said they didn't want any big trucks on the new pavement for a two-week period. So it looks like the first move-in date is gonna be around the 14th of July for the senior center, and I would expect within the 2 weeks after that, the police department to move in.
I've seen WB Mason there already bringing furniture around there today.
So they're not supposed to, but
They were there. I don't know what they were doing, but WB Mason there and
So,
another.
I'm gonna say, cut the 16,725
Mothball
from the
building.
old building, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Mothball that building,
Yeah.
put a chain on the doors, and it is what it is, and
Thanks, Peter.
that saves us $16,000.
Mike?
Just hold on, I think it's this one here. Oh, whatever, that's, okay, 60, okay. Yeah, just wanna make sure I have the right one.
Mike, yes?
Yep.
Norm? Who said that? Me, yes.
Yeah.
Patty?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go down.
sorry about that.
Okay, off Office of Emergency, Management. Seeing that Vic has been doing it for years, is that his training or training for those CERT people?
Is which training professional, $400?
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that.
My assumption is that's for.
Repair, how can repair and maintenance vehicle? It's so
Okay.
much money in that car.
He's got several vehicles.
Oh, yeah, that's right too, yeah.
It's not just have one vehicle.
All right, what does anybody think about this? Cut anything? No. Okay.
Are you doing the 1,500 or not doing the 1,500 on the stipend?
Oh, yeah, we're cutting that.
If we go with Everbridge, we can take all the radio and repair maintenance out of the tower and all Everbridge does that.
No,
And,
we were keeping those in because they were gonna do both, right?
no, because Vic wanted redundancy.
Right.
We've never had redundancy in 50 years here in the township.
Doesn't mean we shouldn't have.
We've gotta cut stuff, so you're gonna cut one or the other, either you're gonna cut Everbridge or you're gonna cut the radio tower.
Well, don't they come on radio now?
Huh?
Oh,
Everbridge is all, internet based.
the tower behind the police station.
That's a repair for the warning system of the radio tower, not the radio tower stuff that the police fire department uses. This is his PA system, basically.
So, do we wanna take that out?
Take one or the other.
Yeah, but if the issue is what, Harold, yes.
All right,
Yeah.
take it out.
Which one?
Everbridge or the radio
No,
tower?
not
Radio.
Everbridge, not Everbridge.
So the radio tower, the warning system. The warning system.
So, take the vote then. Mike,
Yes, out.
out. Norm,
Out.
Lucinda,
Out.
Lori, out. Con,
No.
you're out or in?
Yeah.
You're in. Okay. Patty, in, okay. Next. Can't do much with street lights and water mains, can we? No.
No. Shut lights, electricity out there.
So back to Jason's question, the Everbridge support stipend,
I'm sorry, that's
$1,500, good job. Did you take it out?
But now, there's software and then there's the stipend under emergency management, so what is that stipend?
The stipend is for the person that town hall is helping to support.
Lori, just for a point of information, you are voting to abandon the maintenance on the radio tower and the warning system.
Right?
That's what you guys are voting to do. Now, I don't know the impact of that, but that's what you.
That's a redundancy for the PA system, so.
I don't know.
Cause the Everbridge takes over that stuff, correct?
that's
Am
what-
I correct?
That's what Vic told us at the meeting.
I can tell you that I know for a fact that Vic explained to you that it was gonna take time to be able to get the Everbridge system up and running, to be able to get the subscriber base intact, which is why he wanted to run both systems. But my question is not for or against, my question is
Well,
5,000 plus
I guess
50,000.
until we hear from him, we probably should leave it in, because it is an emergency warning system, right? Agree? I don't know. Somebody, Michael,
And it's, so
Norman?
this is repair and maintenance, if you look historically, it's not like it's a licensing fee for the use
Oh,
of the
okay, I
tower.
got you, yeah.
It's repair and maintenance, and so you look at what's been used in the past. We're not taking it away, but we're just not funding the repair and maintenance of the tower.
Okay. All right, now we're down to the safety complex. That's the maintainer.
That is the,
That has the overtime.
He's called in for snow removal.
That's the safety complex?
you'll see columns periodically.
Mostly work Saturdays for 4 hours. For, metal recycling, TV recycling, UV bulb recycling.
All right, so this is the old one now, hold on a second here. So why Why is this safety, is that the fire department safety complex? Thank you.
So it never shuts down.
Right, gotcha. Alright, is that second new person in that line? Alright.
down here.
That, who is that? That's under new PD.
You're adding a significant amount of square footage to the buildings that get maintained.
It looks like a half-time employee.
Time to get rumba.
It's split between here and TIF.
Okay. Next.
Not a lot of money right here.
No, alright, so landfill.
Oh, the refuse, that 1.38. So what you're gonna do is add a revenue line of 1380.
We have a revenue line for a very large percentage of the 1.3 million, I think. Hopefully we can get the collector to help us through the discussion, hopefully.
Alright. Public Works Garage.
Not really much of anything else, no.
We've already cut a lot of this stuff.
Alright, youth services. Youth services people, anything? Okay. Veterans and social services. Not much there. Outside services. So how much should we take out of this budget?
What's the duties and fees? I think we already scrubbed this, didn't we? During the first.
Correct.
I thought we already.
Yep.
We went through that. So we have $1,500 reduction for the Everbridge stipend, $3,000 reduction for the, IT stipend, a $9,000 reduction for for legal, 16,725 for turning the senior center building over effective, I'm gonna assume effective 7/1. And
Did we do non-union
5,000 for tower maintenance and 2,000 for Everbridge speaker maintenance, for a total of 37,225 in reduction.
So what about the non-union raises? You guys talked about it, but
We never go back to, where's the garbage?
Garbage,
That
was
stays
explained
in.
that was gonna be a revenue
Yeah,
item
revenue
adjustment.
offset.
Alright. But total, what is the decrease?
If you wanted to include the, if you include the revenue from the trash.
Yeah.
I don't know what this
The
would be.
trash, like the hazardous day waste costs are a payment we make to NBC, so I would
Yeah.
not include that.
Yep.
But if you include everything else, it is
So now we're up to what?
like 1.4.
Wow, we're getting to 8 million real fast, aren't we? Okay, next.
Never gets any good.
I know that.
So if we're just hitting
Just
the
wanna clarify your
larger,
expectations.
we're just hitting the larger departments, do you wanna take a look at public works at all?
Yep. Yeah, we did do that.
The lion's share of the cost is in personnel, right? It's in salaries and wages.
No, but, so we can't expect efficiencies to go up.
Efficiency is secondary. The question is, do we do a reduction of one individual as a start? without reduction in personnel, we're not gonna get. We're just not gonna, I don't know, it starts at 60,000 roughly. 61.
Make a proposal, Mike.
That's all started. I think we have to reduce one individual.
And we have the salary and wage sheet, right, so you know what that is.
Yeah.
And then make recommendations on the wage to increase by that much.
Roughly $60,500 roughly.
That includes fringe, or is that just
No,
bells?
just base salary.
Right? 64, 65.
Move that to a footnote, so we know that that is production of one employee. That's the lowest paid employee, like maintainer one.
Maintainer one.
I think it goes by seniority.
Oh, it does, that's why I said it should be a maintainer one.
I think that is correct, it would be a maintainer. There's probably another 25% in related items.
Anything else? So what do we do anything with the season?
Are we voting on that one? Are we voting on that one
I'll
first?
wait till we're done.
Okay.
Seasonal?
There's no detail in the budget for the season. I mean,
There is.
What are they, are those kids that they hire for the summer or what?
Yeah, they do basic maintenance during the summer, lawns, outside stuff.
Is that where the line tender, where's that line tender?
That'll be a
That's
tip.
Alright, so is that it?
What was the amount on the seasonal?
47,120 would eliminate all of the seasonal.
Well, if you're gonna remove one maintainer, how are you gonna remove the seasonal? Well, for some,
Sometimes they'll get, well, fields don't get mowed once a month instead of once a week. I mean,
oh,
that's what happens. You reduce someone, the services go down, so Little League, you only get your field striped every other week. The fields will only get mowed once a week instead of twice a week. I mean, that's the type of things that Public Works is gonna have to go back and say, I have to adjust. That's where you're at, sorry.
yeah, alright, Mike?
But I'm willing to do a reduction in the seasonal line.
We'll cut it in half. Sure.
Well, wait, we're getting rid of the full-time person and keeping seasonal help?
And there's no,
They're cheap.
and there's no FICA increases. No. You may be into a union thing now, but I tell you, you're cheap.
Full-time job and keep seasonal help.
I don't know how much it is.
I
It's
was glad to
several
what
pieces.
Mark said, less mowing for the summer.
So that's the time. Shut the fields down in September. The ball playing in the fall. We ran, I'm sorry.
Alright, what else, Mike, that's it? Alright, so reduction in one maintainer and half for seasonal. Michael?
Yes, agreed.
Norm?
Yes.
Lucinda? Lori, yes. Con?
Yes.
Patty?
No.
Okay. Alright. Yeah. Okay, next, did we do police yet? How do you say it? two of these for the old and the new? We don't?
No.
No, this is the existing budget, you reduced the start time on a new,
Training. Good police officer.
that's going to the
Got it.
academy. So you have one starting 7/1 that's already been hired, then we have one starting 1/1. And that's the 58, that's the savings of 58,501, which is a 1/1 start.
That's already built in.
The savings of half of it is already built in, but the only, like, if we eliminate that position, it may have an equal or greater than effect on overtime. But it is what it is.
It is by far the largest budget on the town side, by far. So, we, up here, we supported, we approved, this as presented budget. But it didn't go, by a long shot, it didn't go, so, unfortunately, I think you gotta put in some reductions. I think two officers in the dispatcher, does it state? Yeah, it does.
Well, okay, so let me get you checked about the dispatcher, because they always say, well, we don't have enough dispatchers, we gotta throw a cop on there, then boom, overtime. Why not keep the dispatcher and decrease 2 jobs?
So, that's fine, but just understand, it was only, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the dispatch unit was staffed with 4 full-timers and 2 part-timers that there was trouble staffing those part-timers. So, it's not like the unit has never run with 5 dispatchers before.
Do they only have 4, or you say they have 5? They have 6?
Right now, so over the past, I don't know what the numbers, over the past, let's say, 3 to 4 years, they've gone from 4 full-timers and 2 part-timers to 6 full-timers.
Okay.
And we've been able to absorb that, right, we've been able to fund that, but at this point, we gotta reduce somewhere.
But is that going to just transfer over?
Some of it will, not all of it, but some of it will. Unless we can find a way to regionalize dispatch. That's.
Remember, when the police commissioner and the chief came in here on February 19th to do their presentation, and I asked, have you thought about any type of incentive retirement plan? I asked that question. And there wasn't a yes, there wasn't a no, it was, budgets always pass, right? That was the answer. You go back to the tape. Unfortunately, right, it hurts, but unfortunately, it didn't pass. So what do we do? And I think you gotta respect the vote. So we gotta cut.
Make a recommendation.
Okay, go, Mike.
So again, I just math, I said two officers and 1 dispatcher.
How much is that, Mike, estimated?
I think because we have 2,
No, go ahead.
so you would pull the other half of the person that wouldn't be starting on 1/1, right?
91.
Because you have, from the seniority standpoint, I'm not sure you could cut an existing officer and still keep the person in the academy. Then you have a person that's starting on the academy as 7/1, then you most likely would be rescinding an offer to as of 7/1, which, so that's 1.5 positions.
Really,
To get to a second one,
It's
you
really
could
two.
reduce a full-time position to a part-time position, but I think you're at either 2.5 or 1.5 is probably easier.
So 1.5 is really 2. Because if you start looking at next year, that's a whole
Correct.
position, so it's really
Correct, yeah.
2 positions, only
So
half
it
of
would
it's
be
affected this year.
48,501 plus 97-ish.
Not their base pay was like 106.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So if you're going into dispatch, you got nobody at step zero, lowest is what, 70? If you wanted to take a dispatcher, it'd be 70, 250, 850.
Okay. Mike?
I'm okay with these cuts.
Norman? Wolfram? Lori, it has Todd?
Yes.
Patty? No. Okay. Next.
So if we're hitting the big departments, we just transpose this amount here and there, I would say.
Yeah.
So we have public works, police, selectmen, library.
Let's talk library. I say we cut the library budget in half. Reduce the hours.
I agree that there should be a cut, no doubt. I'm not sure if I would sign up for half.
I would sign up in eliminating the whole thing, but I'm being generous and saying half.
Eliminate the entire library?
Absolutely, there's only like 200 people in town that use it out of 12,000. 514,000. I'm looking at the least impact on the citizens.
Community. Found it, because that's your basic community.
A lot of
Can't hear
towns.
you, Norm, can't hear you.
A lot of towns have closed their libraries.
I'm just saying, that's the cornerstone of your public library. We only have one, it's not like we have 16 satellite libraries, we have one. Just my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people don't have, internet service, they go to the library.
That's a hard no.
So here's what I would say is,
That's a hard no.
when I look at the library and I look at the fire department, their budgets are about the same numerically, right? They're just over $500,000. So, and we don't have that in control of the library. When I look at the fire department, when we get there, if we get there, I'm gonna recommend cuts of roughly like $45,000. So I guess, given that the budgets are about the same, I would recommend a cut of, let's say, $45,000, just based on merits. Given that the fire department and the library are very close.
Totally different. You've got a safety factor versus a necessity versus a nice. That's what the two are. Okay? Fire department versus a library? To me,
It doesn't have to be either or.
I mean, neither one, let's face it.
neither one's pleasant, I agree.
And neither one's gonna get us to our 2.7,
I'm against
right?
cutting, I'm not listening.
I mean, I'll throw out $45,000 as a reduction in the budget, and see how it goes. And then you can certainly throw in your 260,000, whatever.
Okay.
I say 45.
You just think this is enough?
Because of the online presence, I'll go for it.
No, can't do it. Todd? Patty? Okay.
So, fire department is probably the next biggest one.
We're on the fire.
Yeah, we're on fire. So we're gonna get rid of that guy that we just said
So
would come.
in this budget, right, we adopted, or we approved a new employee.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think that employee is in place yet, because it's effective July first. Under the circumstances, I guess I would recommend pulling that new position out. And Mark, to your point, yeah, I know, it's safety.
Was it a part-time position that went to full-time?
No.
No.
It was a purely ad.
Yeah, it's a pure ad, so I believe it went from one position or one FTE to two positions or two FTEs, basically doing the same thing.
Okay, no, I'm okay with that.
We want to know, but
So, is that it in this whole budget, or you want something else?
I mean, I think as a starting point, that's it. So I think it was $45,760 that has to get reduced.
So last year's budget was 42,800, these are non-union positions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you return it back to the 42,800?
I would think you do.
It should be 48,400. That number should be $45,760. That's what they, that's what like two is.
I think they built a raise into it.
Yes, yeah. And there's also like a small stipend for supervisors in that line. So that would be my recommendation for the fire department.
Anything else?
That's fire commission, the fire department, right?
I stand corrected.
That's why fire,
Yes, I stand corrected.
All right, so Norm,
Yeah.
out, right? Lucinda?
Yeah, I'll,
Lori, out, Tom?
You know, I'm gonna vote to keep it in because I'm worried about the volunteer fire department. A lot of these towns are losing the volunteer fire department. And you lose a volunteer fire department, you got a tremendous cost.
but this is under fire commission, not fire department.
Yeah,
No, but it's affecting the fire.
It's affecting the fire department.
it's people's manning the fire.
So that's the only reason I'm gonna go no. I mean, otherwise I would have said yes. I'm worried about losing the volunteer fire department.
Patty?
No.
Okay. Full time.
What's your pleasure? Those are the biggies.
What does that add up to?
The total amount that was cut, should be cut, $427,773, and then you're gonna check with a revenue of 1.3-ish.
All right, let's go with revenue. Nobody else, on any other budget, does anybody else wanna cut anything?
Ain't much left to cut though.
I know, I get it.
Employee benefits, the only thing we haven't talked about is the non-union employee raises,
Oh, yeah, we didn't get the non-union employee
which is
wages.
89,000.
All right, let's talk about the raises. Michael?
And I would be in favor of reducing them.
Norman, what are you in favor of?
2.5, cut it.
Lucinda?
I do not want to reduce them.
You don't want what?
I don't want to reduce them.
Okay, I don't wanna reduce them either, only for the main fact that they get screwed every time.
I agree.
And after last year's debacle with the negotiations of whatever happened there, I think they deserve it, so I get it, but they have been screwed time after time after time. And because of unions, Conway, how do you feel?
Yeah, if you whack these people, I mean, you know, you're forcing people to unionize. You know, they see that you can't touch the contractual union, but we turn to the people who want to unite, and we hit them.
Alright, so, Patty, he's decided, alright, so, Patty's in, Con's in, I'm in, Lucinda, in, Norm, at 2.5, and you're out, so it stays in.
Talk about it, that's all I wanted.
There you
So,
go.
so this is our revenue sheet. Only one adjustment, from the state of Connecticut revenues, that our town aid road went up to 3 change. This gets split, even between, the town aid road fund and our fund, so we can have an increase of 25,000 in revenue and operating transfer from highway.
But isn't that specific to a
I-
certain expense?
I thought that was only to go to TAR, how can you go into the general fund?
We have an operating transfer to highway equal to 50% of our town aid road, and we expend well over that $150,000 on the maintenance of our roads.
Oh, town, okay,
Alright, so
Yes.
you're adding that in?
okay.
So I would put up the, just
Yeah.
bring it to your attention.
Yep. Well, add more revenue, bring the tax down.
So, under miscellaneous revenue, I believe, revenue other, that we're talking about adding in 1,355,000.
You go 000 for the heck of it. Not gonna change the number that much.
Go back to the expense just for 1 second.
While Bruce is looking, not to get too picky, but I know where he's getting the number from, but we're not adding 100%, right? We're not, no collectors collect 100% of what gets billed out. So I might look at, just as a starting point, to make it nice and easy, 90% or something like that.
1.2?
Yeah, or, yeah, around, something.
1.2 is a median number, that's all.
And I wouldn't put the whole thing in, right, because you just set yourselves up for more failure.
You're talking about the collection rate?
Yep.
We had it at 98.
Yeah, but that's for property taxes, right?
Okay.
This is a fee, this is a fee for garbage, so.
So sewers collectively is 94%, so you assume it's lower than that. But 90%, it's 1.219 up to 1.355.
So I think Mark's idea of 1.2 is good. I mean, I personally.
For a start.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I wanna take like a 10-minute break, but then I want Peter to come up, and I wanna talk about lowering the threshold for, tax sales and including those who own on motor vehicles and, whatever. But let's take a 5-minute break.
You said 10.
Oh, is it 10? Alright, 10 minutes. Take it, ready, Jason?
I didn't turn anything off, we could just go.
Alright, so we're calling it meeting back to order at 8:40. Pete, you wanna talk about your thing?
Thanks for coming, Pete.
Distinguished them.
Hey, Johnny, the assessor's here too.
Good evening, Peter Jasinski, tax collector. So there was some discussion about, being able to add, new source of revenue or adding revenue. And within the budget, we have added this year, I think it was an additional 500,000, I think it was, between prior year and, interest and fees. And that was basically through the tax sale that we're gonna schedule for, the spring of '26, so that revenue would be, it was based upon a criteria of, I think, a couple of years and $10,000 in terms of what would be the criteria. But the criteria is not set in stone, it's really, it's set by the collector, so we can be as aggressive or, you know, as we wanna be with that criteria. So we can go to just a flat dollar amount if we wanted to, anyone falls within the dollar amount. And
Are
then-
we talking houses and cars?
No, these are just houses, so.
Oh,
this
just
would be-
houses,
yeah,
okay.
so- Yeah, there's a second item that, we also discussed that I can kind of elaborate on. But this would be, basically you would pull more people into it by a more aggressive criteria, which is what we would do.
Yep.
Right now, it's what, 3 years, $10,000?
I believe it was 2, but it might have been 3 and $10,000.
I thought it was 3 and 10 is what we said, we can go 2 and 10.
Yeah.
I go 2 and 5.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the years is not really a thing, it's the dollar threshold, so we could certainly drop that down, you know, just you could either go to just a flat dollar amount, because then you could actually capture, commercial properties
And
that.
take out the year thing, just go straight down.
You could do that,
I
sure.
love that. That's
You
how the
can-
IRS does it. Yeah.
So it's not, so, again, I don't know if we necessarily have to make a decision here in terms of the criteria, but, we could certainly develop the criteria based upon what we kind of think, you know, we could put in there, and I do have a couple of thoughts in terms of what we could add if you wanted to.
Yep,
do
let
that.
it rip.
Well, let me just also include another item that we could potentially do, which we haven't done in the past, and, which is, so I was just here a few weeks ago for the suspense list and presenting that, so that, we still actively collect the suspense list, but we don't, we kind of let the DMV hold do a lot of the collection for us and things like that, but we can certainly be more aggressive in terms of, we can start a process of anything that's been suspended, we can send out demands for that, and then what we don't collect, we could turn that over to a collection company, which collection agencies have a lot more resources than we do. They have, the ability, they have technology that can find people, especially if they moved away. They can do skip tracing, things like that, so they could potentially get, a lot of that money back, so that you could add some money, whether it's interest and fees, and
They get a percentage, right?
that's paid by the individual taxpayer, so like that, we wouldn't get charged as.
So if they, I'll make it up, so they owe $2,000, he collects $2,000, but he says it's $2,400, because you gotta pay $400 for him.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we wouldn't be charged anything.
So all that burden, all that money, revenues would come back to us in whole.
Correct, whatever they can collect would come back to us.
So how much did we put on the suspension list last week? Remember?
$109,000?
Yeah, that's for 2022, you know, how much do we do for 2021?
Yeah, no, that's just for the 21 grand list, I think it's 109. But if you look at the 15-year period, at 14 years, which is roughly what it is, the net amount is about 800,000 that's been on there for that many years. Now, keep in mind, that's personal property and motor vehicles. Understand that a lot of that is not really collectible, or some of that, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's some of that's not collectible, because you have people that have either passed away, you have businesses that have gone out, and most likely you're not gonna be able to get that money, you're not gonna get it from it. But there's still a lot of people that haven't paid, even if they're local, it wouldn't matter, they would also do that, but the big thing for us are people that have either moved away, they don't lease, you know, they lease cars now, so they don't buy them and things like that, so it's not in their name. There's ways that they can reach them that we can in our office, we just don't have those type of resources, so if you look at both of those, I mean, I think you could increase prior year and also interest and fees. And you know, I was looking at it, we added about 500,000, we could probably, you know, I know it seems like a lot, but there's still a lot out there. I could see doing another 200,000 maybe in prior year, and then another 50 in interest and fees.
Well, right now, prior year is at what, 275?
275 is the increase over the prior year.
Right.
So 650 is what we put in there.
Right, so
We do it 850.
I think 850 and then, 500,000 for the interest and fees.
Okay, so what about houses?
What do you mean?
Well, right now you're doing a tax sale, but the criteria was based on what?
$10,000.
So, if we lower that,
Yeah.
because once somebody owes $10,000 in taxes, I'm sorry, it spirals out of control.
Yeah, so we'll lower that, but because we had a tax sale a couple years ago, there's not a lot that's from prior year. Like, there'll be some there, so I wanna be sort of conservative in terms of what we could get. But I think that's a number with, you know, adding both of these things into. I mean,
Oh, the houses and the cars.
yeah, because prior year is gonna encompass both the, you know, the actual collection and also the additional amount we would get with the tax sale, because it's in addition to the already increase that we put in there, so.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Oh, Mike, you're looking good.
I agree with it.
Yeah, so I just wanna make sure I understand, so the recommendations, an increase of 250,000 in revenue.
It would be 200,000 on the prior year and 50,000 on the interest.
Right. And this is related to, both the houses as a result of the tax sale and motor vehicles
Correct.
by using a third party, and they earn their own fees, the third party, from the owner of the vehicle.
Right.
Thank you.
And just so, because I know this can potentially develop holes for future years, this would have to be a sustained thing, not on the tax sale necessarily, but on like turning this over to collections and things like that. That would have to be a new normal, in other words, that we would just be.
On top of billing people for garbage.
A lot of towns do
Well,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Really? Oh, I believe it.
yeah, no, it's, I mean, and they do right away, like, if they could do the current list and they would send it, and so we would probably be looking to work up to that, because we, you know, I kept hearing tonight, like, you know, the vote was overwhelming in terms of what the message is, right? So the message that I heard was, you know, they don't want these big increases, so my part really is to collect as much as I can, right? So I'm hearing that we should probably do more to try to collect, so, and that's, to me, that's probably one of the last things we haven't done, you know, which is to just push it out to collection agencies, which do a good job to help sort of spread our resources. They essentially work for us to get the additional monies, you know, when we just, you know, we're not able to do it, so.
Two quick questions.
Yeah.
So, for many years, you and this board, we had a tough time getting the first selectman that was in office at those times to sign a contract to allow your office to go through a tax sale. Is that behind us now, or is there gonna be another need to make sure a first selectman buys off on the process?
So something we already did this year, earlier this year, was we actually started using a collection agency for businesses. And they specialize in personal property for businesses that, First Selectman Storms signed off on, he was in favor of. And I don't see any issues with that, and then, you know.
So that was the houses, the tax sale. Now, there's a different.
No, this is we did personal property tax, you know, just specializing in business personal property tax, which needed a contract that he signed.
Okay, so So no concern about using someone for vehicles, no concern about tax sale, whatever contracts are needed, you can get. But just wanna make sure. I mean, for many
Yeah.
years, we struggled, not your fault, not our fault, but we couldn't get the selectmen to sign. So, okay, thank you. Got it.
Thank you. So, yeah. We'll have a look, John. We want to talk briefly about Fayetteville. John, assessor man. I know, I feel the same way, John. I don't know if I wanna get into a great depth about it, but we wanna touch about it because the chatter out there is phase-in. We as a board initially voted against a phase-in, but again, there's a lot of chatter. And again, have we significantly brought, based on these cuts, down to the level of spending that we did last year?
We're below the amount that was billed out last year. You cut expenses of 423 and increased revenues by about 1.5 million. That in the appropriation side of things would be less than what you billed out last year.
We go back to parking revenues.
Yeah, hold on a second.
The answer to your question is no. The overall budget, the bottom line budget is still higher in fiscal year 26.
By how much? That's what I wanna know. Then we'll-
Again, you have two pieces, you have revenue and expense. If you wanna take a look at a sheet of what that looks like, or from a tax standpoint, or.
Well,
No, I
we
wanna
got
know-
1, 2 of revenue, and whatever we say, that's our number.
No, I wanna know
Or if you-
what we spent last year, that budget 59, whatever. With the cuts we just did tonight, are we down to 59, whatever? How short are we?
You're, from an expense standpoint, you're still up, and you're up by
Tell me 30
$2.3 million. From a revenue standpoint, you were still up by,
Oh, we added 1.95 for revenues.
correct, you had 1.6 just in tax. I think the more, there's a chart that can show this if you'd like me to show.
Yeah, show it, just so I can get it done with my God.
I'm gonna go back to
We are,
okay.
because, well, we are. Because I want people to see that after we have lowered it all and we're paying the same amount of money that we paid last year, that those people who had increased assessments on their house are basically picking themselves over the town. They would much rather save their little house and their self versus the town. My asset went up, I know it went up, and I'm more than happy to pay the damn tax on it.
They might be-
So our failed option 5, if I'm gonna change what it would be, the budget proposal goes down by, let me rearrange some screens here. You're gonna reduce this by 4277.
We need to further reduce it, Jason?
No, it's just doing what we are reducing.
Non-tax revenue is 18,977, we're changing our non-tax revenue to.
Literally reduce the operating budget by a dollar amount.
Well, that's what we're looking at now.
4277, that's what you.
427, That's what we.
I mean, what do you increase? I mean, you increase from 51, this to this is the difference. And from a non-tax revenue, your non-tax revenue was 18,977 before, and you are adding in 1.2 million of, additional revenue, 25,000 in town aid road and 250 in tax, which is 1,475. Minus 1,475, 123.
Was it 25,000 you said for tar? Yeah.
Yeah, 25,000. So. So reduced expenses by 4277, revenue was 475, which is a cash requirement of 40,977.89 versus a cash requirement last year of 41,760 at a collection rate of 99%, assuming that that's still good. Billable requirement is 41 million. This is a lot of ugliness that John and I worked on this year.
Is that your phone? Is making that noise? Who's making that?
I think I came up with $381,000 is what the increase is from last year.
Maybe the spreadsheet is not right, but, the grand list was 2,096,000. And I think it's still 2,096,000. We've got corrections and adjustments of 68 million, and then 3 million in income expense penalties and BAA appeals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it'll come down to a mill rate of 20.81. Mill rate of 20.81 with the revaluation takes a 30% tax increase and brings it to 24.21% increase. So on
Or $99.38 a month.
Back to the original question.
Yeah.
How much more did the budget increase from last year to this year? My calculator, quick one off the sheet, is $381,000 versus the 2.78.
It's a lot more. You see that, Mark?
The budget increased from 59 million to now 61.5 million.
Okay. The original budget was $59,093,093.
Agreed.
61,877,604 is the current budget. The delta is 2,782,876.
Right.
Minus $1,950,000 or $1,975,000 on what we added for fees, what Pete added for.
That increases, right?
No, that's revenues, right? So it should
Revenues are
decrease,
two different lines here, Mark.
but that decreases the delta,
Correct.
okay? So we decrease that 2.7 by 1,975. Then we decrease it by another 427,772 is what you told me we dropped the operating budget to. That comes up with $381,000 added on to 59,093.
This is the format we're using. I have increased revenues by 1.475 here. I've reduced expenses by 427,773 here.
No, we increased revenues
Right.
by $1,975,000.
1.9 or
Yes.
1.4?
1.9.
All right, so let's
Well,
check that. Let's go back to our
let's see.
revenue line.
Oh, I think I took a 7 and a 2. 1.4, I mean, I stand corrected, that's 1.45. 1.45 million.
All right, so I've got, increase of revenue of 200,000 in prior year taxes.
Increase of 200.
50,000 in
Yeah.
taxes, liens and fees. I've got 25,000 in town aid road. I've got 1.2 million in, say,
Correct?
Alternate
One-
revenues,
that's
revenues
145, right?
So that's 1475.
Okay.
And that comes off line row 10 here, which our revenues were 18,977, and we're subtracting in more revenue here. So if you take a look at what Peter would be billing, Peter in 24-25 billed 42,289. Based upon the assumptions we have in this, Peter would be billing 41,411, 908.
Okay, so, all right.
Which is billing less than we billed out last year. But because of the split and the way the taxes go, residential versus commercial, it's,
Okay.
and on a percentage basis, let's figure this out.
So did you come up with a new budget of $59,974,831? Is that what it would have been? I'm trying to take revenues, I'm trying to say the 2.7 million minus the revenues, minus the reductions, should equal the number that we have to increase last year's budget by.
So we were at 61,877,604.
Okay.
And we reduced it by 427,773, that gets us to 61,449,831.
Well, we increased our revenues
Correct?
by 1,475.
Right? So those are non-tax revenues, right? You back into the amount you have to bill from a tax standpoint.
Correct.
So we were at non-tax revenues of 18,977,042, and we increased that revenue amount by $1,475,000, which is the non-tax revenue goes to $20,452,042. The delta between that is your cash requirement of $40,997,789. You then have to factor in Pete will not collect all that. So that comes down to a billable requirement of 41,411. We've got a grand list of $2,096,000,000. You've got corrections and adjustments at 3.25%, some interest and penalties, some BAA appeals, stipulations, that still have to come to bear. You'd be subtracting out the TIP district at 29,626,680 for a budgetary grand list of 1.99 billion. Do the division, and it's a mill rate of 20.81, which means that Peter collects 41,411, which is the billable requirement up here, 41,411.
All right, now go down, and let me see what that got. So again, based on a house that's worth $420,000, that's 70%. We're paying more, $99.38.
Well, the 420,000 is really what, 510? That's 70%.
I don't care. $99 a month more, and you people wanna do a phase-in? That's crazy. We spend more money doing a phase-in than that.
Something's incorrect. Why?
All right, talk about phase-in, please. Well, first of all, talk about what these adjustments are. What these adjustments are that you had, that were changing based on the assessment and Board of Assessment appeal stuff. There's some changes, right?
Correct.
Good changes or bad changes?
We have added changes for, most of the commercial appeals that we have looked at and made some adjustments to. Looks like it's, can't see, it says 12 million. And then we have our usual car adjustments for the fleets that sell off large quantities of vehicles this year. That came to, so far, $33 million. There will be more adjustments made from there. We've, so far, out of that 68 million, we've taken off 44 million, and we still have 12 million left for BAA appeals, and that's for lawsuits that we have to decide.
So John, would you recommend changing the 68 million down to an allowance of, 68 less 46, because you've made 33 million in car adjustments and 13 million in real estate adjustments already?
We have to have some, there's gonna be more car adjustments.
So
The
that would
rental
leave you-
agencies continue to sell cars, people sell their cars, we're gonna have those adjustments. And then we're also going to have lawsuits that may or may not be settled this year. I don't know what the time frame is on those. Some people push them off, sometimes they get expedited through the court system.
So that would give you $22 million worth of adjustments, plus 12,000 for BAA assessment appeals and stipulations. So that would give you a total of 31 million adjustments between
31 left over.
31 left. Before we
We have
had,
11 lawsuits at this point. There are liability in those, some of them are interesting. We have a couple that are very large differences. We have a $30 million assessment on the property that had 15 in their appeal. That would be comfortable with.
Well, they said their building worth 15 million, and the assessor said it was worth 30 million, and they're taking those to court.
Doesn't have to be a fatality.
Well, let's phase in this now. Yeah. All right, so,
would we wanna adjust the corrections and adjustments downward from the 3.25%, or do we wanna leave them up at the 3.25%, Jen? What would you recommend?
I mean, I don't feel comfortable going below that, but again, I don't know the timing of the lawsuits. Which could happen, those are gonna hit this year.
You have, $22 million in lawsuits. You just described one where they said it's worth 15 and our assessor, our consultant says it's worth 30. So that would be almost like most of those dollars, right? But we also have the 12 down for the Board of BAA appeals, which is, would be over that $12,000, so.
Right.
Do we have another?
If we split the rest of the appeals, we're gonna be over. If we go to court and lose them, or split them, we will be at that 12. Outstanding, we have a liability recovery portion. If we were to, split and lose them all, we would be out, at this point, I think we're still on the hook for about 50.
For how much?
55, which is,
I believe it's close to 40 or 50. I don't remember.
so if we're at 77, would you go down to 50, or you still think you wanna stick at the 77?
you're comfortable with that, right?
Comfortable with what?
Yeah, those numbers.
Those tough questions. Putting you on the spot at 9 o'clock.
I mean, I tend to be very conservative.
Okay, so now, everybody's talking about phasing. Again, this board voted for no phasing. Just briefly, as Michael says, 200 feet. Just give us a rundown of what phasing would do, how it affects the taxpayer on the homeowner whose asset has increased in value and doesn't want to pay taxes on it, versus commercial, who now will be paying more taxes in addition to whatever, which it still is outweighing each other. But how does it help them? How does it help us? How much does it cost us to do that?
How much does it cost to do the phasing? I mean, our cost is, we would charge to QDS, and for them to set up the phase-in would be, I believe it's a $2,500 charge. The amount of work that goes into the phasing is quite substantial. We have to run a dual system in our office. If it's a 4-year phase-in, I'm going to run a dual system for 4 years. After the end of the 4 years, we're right back to where we go. So if you go with the 4-year, if you go with a 4-year phase-in, which would, then you would take the 23 assessment on the house, 24 assessment on the house, and depending on the number of years that you have for a phase-in, you would split the difference over those years. So, the first year, if you did a 2-year phase-in, you would add 50% of the value of the increase the first year, and you would add 50% of the increase the next year. So what's gonna happen is your mill rate, your grant list is going to go down considerably, and your mill rate is going to have to go back up to offset that. So what happens is your car taxes are gonna go up. Commercial is going to pay the same rates, they're not going to have a higher rate, you can't tax them at a different rate for.
Cause it's against the law,
It's
right?
against the
Thank
law,
you.
yes. And then thirdly, the only place that you would catch up on the shift meaning the amount of money that went into the reval, where the houses went up 70% and commercial went 20%, that's called the shift of the burden of the taxes are going back to the homeowner. That shift would be made up a little bit because of, businesses would pay a higher tax rate on their personal property, which would not affect the homeowner. So that's the catch-up switch. But you're also, the integrity and the intent of a reval is every 5 years is to bring everything back to an even footing and being at the same assessment ratio of 70%. You're immediately destroying that when you do this.
The state
Countermanding
permits
the-
a 4-year, up to a 4-year phase.
We can do, because we did a 6-year reval, we have to get back on cycle, so our next reval is in 4 years. So we can only do a 4 year. Normally you can do a 5-year.
But we could do a 2, 3, or 4.
Correct.
And what happens is, you guarantee that you're gonna build in a tax increase for the next 3 years.
However long you're phasing, you are gonna have that same tax increase every year,
You're just
regardless
shifting,
before
you're
you
just
spend
shifting the
the next
burden
year.
out, that's all.
Well, at least, John, at least that tax increase.
Correct.
If there's more spending increases over the next 4 years, it's gonna be that plus whatever else we have to do.
And there's inevitably going to be contractual increases.
Correct.
So, everybody goes, okay, I'll use Michael's famous word, 30%, right? He's going up 30%.
On average.
On average, okay?
Yeah.
How can you go 10% the first year? And then 20% the second year? Because they want it, everybody says we gotta ease into that payment.
The answer to that question is yes and no. It has to be a minimum of 20%. You could do 20% the first year, 80% the second year, you could do whatever it is, as long as there's a component, it has to be over 25%. Normally, if you do a 2-year, it's 50-50, 3-year, 33, 33, 33, 4-year, 25, 25, 25.
Okay.
There's pros and cons. It's not this complex. If we ever get to that point, we really need to have an expectation or a spreadsheet of, here's what we expect a 3 or 4 year to be for a homeowner for the next 4 years, and we have to anticipate there's gonna be a certain increase in the out years and what those
Oh, you would have to include contractual agreements for teachers,
utilities
for
going up.
the police,
Yeah.
my God, public works.
Oh, yeah, so I mean, and I'm making the number up, so don't quote me, but instead of $1,400 a house, we may get to $600 a house this year. And that 600 may be the same for the next 4 years. But next year, we may have a $2 million increase, which would be another $144, so that's 600 be $744.
So why would we not wanna just rip the Band-Aid off? I get it, I really get it. But this is your asset. You purchased a home, we've given you five years of lower taxes, cause Mike always, 6 years of lowering taxes, to the point, at some point, you have said over the past, why aren't we raising taxes? Why aren't we raising? Now we gotta raise taxes, and what is market, you guys want, let's do a phase-in.
I'm not in favor of phasing, because it's gonna screw this board for the next 4 years, trying to do a
Not
balanced
just
budget.
the board.
Well, us having it presented, but I mean, people don't realize you're kicking the can down the road. At the end of 4 years, you're still paying the same amount, whether you paid a lot up front or even the amount. It's still the same amount over a 4-year period.
And it wasn't that we weren't aware of this. Meaning
That we
people,
weren't.
right, correct.
No, we voted
People
that we
said
didn't
that,
want it.
oh, we had got bad advice, or we weren't aware of it. We were here 2 nights a week for 3 months straight. We knew all of this.
Yeah.
And the decision was made that this is the best way we thought we could do it,
And we talked to other towns about the phasing.
right?
Okay. Even Doug Glazer talked about, he was here as a selectman when they did the last phasing and how it affected the town negatively for
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
And I think Con expressed the same thing
Oh,
in the
yeah.
nineties, right, Con?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's a mess.
So I mean, and I get it. I get that it's a big lump sum for some people. I really do, but I mean, it's the cost of doing business. It's not like we're
It's not the cost of doing
negligent.
business, it's the cost of the asset that you purchased,
It's the cost of-
that you own.
Yes.
Like Norm was saying, I'll let you say it, Norm, because you say it so much better.
10 years ago, everyone was saying, geez, I wish I had that $400,000 house. Their house is $135,000. But here we are, 5, 6 years later, now they have that $400,000 house that they've always wanted.
Yeah,
They don't wanna pay the taxes on it. So on paper, you're richer. You know, look at it.
And we get that it only benefits people that are gonna sell their house. And we're not saying we want you to sell your house. But your house was worth a lot more 2 years ago, and you weren't paying taxes on what it was worth.
Right, exactly.
6 years we had at that lower amount, and they started going up in COVID.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you knew right then and there, people couldn't, yeah. Everybody from New York was fleeing.
Yeah, so it's not that we don't get it, we get
Yeah,
it.
this isn't
But the
unique
taxes
to
are gonna be
Lions
due.
either.
It's not like we sat down and said, hey, let's lower taxes on commercial, businesses. We did not do that.
Right.
It's a function of the valuation of the asset. Same thing with residential.
Yeah, like I said, this isn't unique to Windsor Locks, this is everywhere.
Right. And Windsor Locks is still lower
Yeah,
than most of
absolutely.
the towns in the state.
All right, I guess we're left with this TIF budget.
Different Park and Rec.
Oh, let's go to Park and Rec first. Mark wants to close the pools.
I got issues with that, so.
I'm all set, John, you can go back to your training.
I think he wants to go home,
Am I allowed to leave the building?
Yeah, you're good. Thank
My
you.
escort?
like Elvis.
You never know these things, right?
Thank you. Sorry you had to wait so long.
Hey.
You get paid. John, did you get the letter that you and Con were working on? Have you done it? For the cars?
Did Scott sign it?
Oh, all right.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're on Park Commission. Can we,
Oh, Park Commission, okay, ready.
okay, I would like to request line 20, which is pool summer, to be reduced by $20,000.
Okay, why 20,000? Is that how much how much were you guys collecting for pool fees?
Not very much, I can't give you that dollar amount. It's not matter of a few dollars, I mean, it's
Okay, okay.
So
price of a couple candy bars.
they've got to increase the admission to the pool, which they don't collect anyhow. And, the day camp, the 36,000, I want to reduce that to 20,000 because they don't collect nearly enough to cover.
Oh, yeah, I agree, I
Totally,
agree.
totally.
When they get $100 a week for a kid, you know, I send my grandkids to summer camp, I'm paying $600 a week. So,
Have a babysitter, that's, yeah.
so I would recommend those two cuts. And they can offset those by just increasing their fees.
For 3 years, she's begged them, everybody across the board, everybody to look at
It's
the
a
fees.
monthly thing, battle.
Well, it's not just Park and Rec.
I'm just saying.
Force your hand.
You can go to Senior Citizen Center and we can say the same thing on the fees for the buses.
Okay, so let's do those amounts.
Excuse me, what, 20,000 cut in
Summer pool?
day camp?
No, summer pool, 20,000. I'd say what, at least 16,000 out of, 80,000. Norm, you're on the park commission, so you know more, if
I've
those numbers are
battled
good.
this, I've been battling this for years. I get, you know what I get? Blue collar town, I bang my head, and it's, yeah, Forster him.
All right, so.
I'll go with it.
Let's just do a vote. Well,
I'm just,
Make that motion?
No, we can't.
Patty, you wanna do that?
I'll make the motion to reduce the two line items on the park commission by 20,000, and did we decide 16?
Yeah.
16.
Day camp for 16 and pool for by 20.
Okay, I'll second. So you're okay with
Yes.
that, Con?
Yeah.
Lori, Lucinda?
Yep.
Norm?
Yep.
Whatever your name is, right?
you change direction, you always forget the one at the end.
I know, Norm, like, poor Patty. Yeah. We haven't been around.
The only one, the other low hanging fruit is, if we go to the senior citizen center, we could decrease the transportation line, and they could charge higher for, the bus transportation. They charge $100 a year now, which is like, not even, we don't even get 1/10 of the cost.
That's a revenue, you wanna increase our revenue there, that's not.
Well, it's better
expense
be-
side. So let's look at the revenue.
I know, I'm looking at the. You can take the part-time drivers and knock that down to $40,000, which means they have to offset it with revenues to pay for their PT.
Alright, so right now, the senior center bus pass sits at $6,100.
Because they still have to pay them out of that line item. You can't reduce it down a line item that they have to do. Yes, it's gonna offset that money, but you can't reduce the line item salary.
It just means you reduce either the hours you run in the bus or the amount of people that are doing it. I mean, if you want to offset the cost.
Well,
you
yeah,
can
but
go-
that's not what you were suggesting to do. You were suggesting to raise the revenue.
So you already cut one bus driver in the budget process. Cut $10,000 out of the driver.
I don't know.
Just to clarify, that was not the cut of a bus driver. That was the cut of the valet service from
Oh, yeah, from the-
CES
yeah.
up the hill,
Right.
now that the center is moving. We funded, the board funded that several years ago, got a new building, a flat land,
Agreed.
you don't need that valet service.
Flatlanders.
Yeah, so it wasn't a reduction in force, but it was a reduction in hours.
Right.
So I'm just, there's gotta be a way, I'm trying to think of a way, because we don't control revenues, I don't believe, but we do get the budget, so. I don't know how we do it, but I don't think we're getting compensated enough with the seniors with what they do with the buses.
So-
They're probably the ones that voted no on the budget, so we gotta make sure that they understand what the no means. I'm putting it out there. So right out in the room, but I'm just putting it out there. That's. you
I
say
don't
no.
think we can make assumptions on who voted yes or no.
I know.
I don't
Yeah.
think we can, so I don't think that's a proper thing to say.
Well, there, if you go on, I know you say revenue, but don't we have to do an expense?
You guys tell me, do you wanna reduce the hours, of the bus services? Or do you wanna increase the fee of the bus revenue, or do you wanna do both?
Can we,
What are the other?
so, okay, let's go back to Blake. Remember when Blake came along? Your favorite subject, and you said, why don't we put more in, why don't we put more money in there? That way we can do more stuff. When we were talking about money, and it had a low income money, and you said, well, let's raise that, let's have it work a little more. Can we do the same thing here?
I'm not following.
Okay,
You're talking about increasing the revenue that we expect to get from it.
right, yeah.
And the only thing was that Mark said, he doesn't think we can control the revenue.
But,
Is that true?
and that's what I'm asking Con, because at one conversation, Mike will help me, cause I know you, look, it's easy, he's not listening to me, what we say,
I'm listening.
when we had the whole thing with Blight, we had given them, he had a certain amount of condos, I think we need to raise that to make him work a little more, remember that?
Vaguely, yeah, so this is in the blight line for revenue, but the blight line. So in other words, by going around and sort of, tagging things and finding things, because there was a lot of blight. and then-
So okay, so we increase it, so I'm going with God, if we increase Blight, I guess we could increase this. So how much you wanna increase it?
I mean, the director is here, should we have her,
Oh, Anne
should we
Marie,
have her talk about it or not?
wanna talk about it, come on up.
Right now, the revenue line is what, $14,000?
Why? I know you don't, but you're gonna have to, so that's the end of that story. I will.
Well, I think like Mark said, we have to, everybody's gotta chip in.
Senior center bus pass, we get $6,000 a year. For an expense, that's what, $58,000.
We have talked at Kona, we are meeting this June to, put in place our increases across the board on a lot of our programs.
So should we change this revenue then?
It's not official, but
Well,
It would help make it official.
yeah, would it help if it said the Board of Finance said?
I don't know how that works. I was going to sit with the board and discuss what we're doing
What if we raise it to 10?
to 10.
Yeah, 6,100 now, raise it to 10. How many people use the bus?
Do the math.
How many people buy bus passes?
I have to.
Well, you got $100, I say 610, or 61. You get $100 a person, it's $6,100.
We're looking to, we're raising to
75 a year. I say 75 a month.
Calm
It's a
down,
possibility.
apparently you don't take the bus.
Oh, I don't.
Well, he doesn't even use the library either.
Huh?
It's a further drive to the end of Spring Street.
It is.
Mark's stuck in the library, wanted to see your book.
So that goes up to 12,000.
That's 61.
No, 75 goes to 7,500 now.
Right now, we get $50 a year for the senior citizens.
So you're talking about increasing it by 50%. So increasing it 50% brings it to 9,200 bucks, or 99, say $9,100.
That's a deal.
Well, I mean, I can see if it went up to $100 a year, obviously that's a town number. Most area senior centers average around $60 to maybe 80 to 100, depending on the size of the town, area they cover, and what the services they are. So, but we are planning to, contemplating and planning on raising our costs. But we haven't really set that up. But if a suggestion is $100, I will talk about it, and
You were thinking of suggesting 75?
yeah.
$100 is $8.33 a month. $75 is $6.25 a month.
Or that'd be a line item around $9,000.
For which, put it
Which is
in.
at the seven,
Plus
it's
tax.
50 now, and it goes to 75, assuming that's a 50% increase, that would move 6,100 to, 9,050 or 9,100 roughly. So it would increase that line item by $3,000.
Okay, do it.
Or if you go to $100.
Do it, Patty, do it, Tom,
Yep.
Lori, yeah, do you?
$100 isn't even $10 a month.
It doesn't matter, it's something. Yes,
She
or
said
no?
75, you said 75.
I said 75 a
I'm
month.
saying 100. No, I said.
I know what you said. We're looking at
Not a month,
65.
a year.
Year.
A year, yeah, year.
A year.
Oh, I knew that.
Norm? Whatever, Mike,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
What did you say?
75.
It's not bad.
Yeah, she's up to it. That's good.
You should, save yourself some gas. Yeah, you're right, get out
Like
there,
that, all right.
show the way, because you're right.
So I will, well, you said it's 75.
Parks was
Again, we'll discuss that coming up, if they want to up it even more.
Get out to vote next week.
Okay.
They don't, that means.
The night after the vote,
Hours
after
you
our
vote.
meeting.
Okay,
Good?
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, see, what's the other, anything else you want to pick out? All right, so let's go to TIF.
Can I just,
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, Mike, I'm done.
are we done with the phasing comment? Are we doing that now?
Well, we didn't say whether we wanted to do it.
Okay, no, I know, that's what I'm.
So why don't we just go through everybody and say whether we
Okay,
want it?
you wanna do it?
I wanna keep it the way it is.
Todd? Keep the way it is. Keith?
So initially, yeah, I'm not in favor of the phasing, I'm not. But given where we are, given what the rate is, at this point, I can come around to a 2-year phasing. I know that's, we're not there, but the rate is still too high, but I
The
understand.
rate of the increase in your asset is too high. Got
You
it.
mean the $99 a month, Mike?
Yeah, whatever the number is.
Well, that's what it was.
So.
What's that?
So tell me more what you're thinking, what point do you think it needs to get to?
I think that we need to do whatever is reasonable to bring that rate down based on the vote count that came out. Again,
I know.
I am not in favor of this phase, that's why I didn't, advocate for it over the last 3 months. But I also didn't have those voting numbers in front of me either, so I get it, it's out for now, I get it.
We didn't drop the increase by what, 15%? Average increase?
I don't think so, no, I don't think so. Yeah, roughly,
Roughly what?
about 5%.
I mean, we added some more revenue in, we did a couple adjustments, so would you like me to go back there and sort of see where it is, or do you wanna hit the tip?
Let's do TIF.
Do you know what happened with the warehouse tonight?
It passed.
Hey, more revenue.
Did you?
That's just in that one.
Yeah. Next meeting, change.
So from a tip standpoint, I was really worried about TIF, based upon the fact that if you chose to phase in a mill rate adjustment, it would monkey with the TIF budget. It would force a bunch of calculations that I.
Okay, just for the, are there any more people online? Do we know?
Yeah, we got several.
All right, so again, the TIF budget was voted down. I'm going to assume they don't know what it is. Who feels free or knowledgeable or even wants to explain this so those that are online and in the room can understand it? Mike, Patty.
So the tax increment fund, you look at the space and whether it's a building or nothing is there and you put a building, you do evaluation at a point in time before you start. And Mike, jump in anytime to correct me. And then you can do incrementally as time goes by, how much more that is increased and can get the revenue from it based on what you would get as it did. Not waiting till the last minute and look at the whole valuation of where it is at the end.
So our TIF district is from.
Downtown is the only one that's active.
Right, so from Valero to Montgomery Hall. Not Montgomery, Memorial Hall. Yeah.
Those, the Walgreens is part of the tip, I thought it stopped just before the Walgreens. I thought it stopped right after the exit.
I don't know if that's it or not.
So, Lori, in order for me to adjust the TIF budget, can we get to brass tacks on the revenue and expense side of things?
Sure.
Please?
Yeah.
So our expense, with, reductions in the park commission, our reduction went to 463,000. So when we take 463 goes to 61. The budget goes to the expense budget goes to 61,413,831. We have also modified our revenue budget by updating the senior bus pass by $3,000. So that changes our by $3,000 in our revenue line item. So our billable requirement is 41 million. We still have a grand list of 2,096,000. Did we make an adjustment
No,
to that? So we left that at 63 million, or 68 million?
Yes.
Okay. So that brings the mill rate down to 20.79.
so from 21.77 to 20.79.
Then,
Yep.
yep, then that number would then apply to the TIF district, okay? So I'm gonna take that 20.79, I'm gonna jump over to,
This is all over here.
20.79.
20.77, I think, 79.
Okay, that's the wrong, this one. That's the right 20.79.
Don't remember?
Yep.
It was a little slide back.
I don't know.
Jason, why is it in that spot? Cause you,
I'm trying to remember what, like, I was trying to compare what like, this was a range of, when we did the TIF budget, we had a range of what we have the expected value, the range of expected values were going to be. So we fixed the mill rate, and we picked sort of like the median point of these two budgets. So equals this plus this divided by 2, order of operation. This and this. So it's 548 versus 572. You wanna drop that number in there, guys?
Yep. That's what it is.
So that's a budget of 477, so we would have to cut this minus this. We have to cut out 28,301. Okay? So what's our pleasure here to cut? Now, understand, anything we adjust in the police, selectmen, or public works line is gonna monkey with the general fund budget. So if we could avoid that, I would appreciate it.
so what's the consultant line there, Jason?
That's Sullivan and Lachey. That's our lobbyist. So Sullivan and Lachey is 60, and our grant contact, we budgeted $15,000.
Okay.
We used to have, that number used to be 30 for somebody who would pay
Yep.
each, this is a on-call sort of grant consultant. The grounds.
Who's the part-time person?
That's the maintainer.
That's a
They were
maintainer.
gonna split the maintainer between the new and this one.
So the grounds maintenance is the historical, that 16,450 was the historical building, that was in the selectmen's budget. So if I were gonna try to cut 28, there isn't I would take the grant contact, bring by 15 grand, take the legal out by 10 grand, and take the loans expense of 2 grand, and you're.
Do we have to fund an arts council? Can we get rid of that?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think we can get rid of that now, cause that's already been, that's like,
We're starting to sign contracts for
Yeah.
next year already, because we need to sign the entertainment contracts like at least 6 months in
that's
advance.
part of part-time,
So we have grounds maintenance
we have salary and wages allocated public works,
Well, we-
and
you're
what's
gonna-
salary and wages seasonal? Was that the lot tender?
So the salary and wages, public works, remember when we wanted to help with their budgets? And we took some TIF money and used it in their budgets, so it's not an extra person for the
But
TIF.
what about the seasonal?
Yeah, I don't know what the season is.
That's a lot there. That's what we call the lot.
So, do we,
But wait,
not to be
did we-
rude, but do we need a lot tender in this type of environment?
Well, the loan expense can go to zero, right? We already do that. Because we don't have a loan expense, line item 28, 24.
One second.
Yeah.
This is an option. Not a great option, but this is an option.
I would say take out the seasonal, didn't we take out the seasonal from,
Cut it in half.
Took out half. We probably gotta talk about that too.
Well,
If I could just make a comment here. Oh, you wanna go first?
Well, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there, an option, not the option, but just for consumption. Reduce the seasonal labor down by $1,300. We've already reduced seasonal labor at Public Works. The dollars here help offset those seasonal labor dollars. Bring legal, it's just to get to the bottom line here, right? So, the legal, line was bumped up to $20,000.
Back to 10.
You go back to 10. You pull the grant contact, which is, I'm not sure that's a great idea, but it's $15,000. And then loan expense is $2,000, so you get to 28,301. If you know, another option could be you blow away all the lock tender and you throw the money back in legal or consultant. But that, at least, it's a start, here, write it out.
So if I may, this budget is voted down, but it's no. So we can't be insulting, we can't throw back the same budget. But, I'm not convinced we really need to cut the full 28,000. In other words, I understand how we got that number, and we looked at like the maximum assessment, and then like let's say a minimum based on appeals and lawsuits and stuff, but you don't have to take 50% or the average of those two numbers, I don't believe. You know, we could take a little bit more than the average, which would make the cuts go down, right? I'm not saying to submit the same budget.
So I'm disagreeing with you though, Mike. I think we can submit the same budget for TIF. I don't think people really understood what TIF was, and they just came in and voted no.
Go across the board.
I mean, it was 1,000 people out of 9,000 registered voters. They just didn't, they weren't happy with what was proposed. They just voted no across the board.
Just like question number 4.
I think because the bonding, that's another way it's going to go. I think we can submit this.
So I would just say, as a former petitioner, I would disagree. I mean, we can vote, I get it, right, and it's fine, but just for the record, as a former petitioner, I would not wanna see the same budget come back without any changes, but.
I would find that sorry.
But,
Yeah, we took them long time ago.
They took the time to go out and vote and express their opinion, and for us to disregard it, it's a slap in the face to all the people who did what they thought was right. Whether it was right or wrong, they thought they were, you know, I disagree.
So then, I said then take out, what, the whole seasonal?
yeah, I think the whole season should go out.
As much as you can on the consultant.
Yeah, I would keep the consultant,
Yeah,
Especially
I
the
would
second.
agree.
That brings us money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we gotta,
And was the legal supposed to go down now?
We are, in the financial forecast I'm gonna be giving you at the next meeting, we're over legal guys right now.
For this, for the TIF?
We're over in all of them.
I don't care about the rest of them.
Yeah.
The TIF, we're over?
what legal fees.
How much are we over by?
I'll go back to that. I took a very hard look at the general fund budget there, and we only have encumbered POs. You know, I don't have that exact number, but if you wanna cut the legal, we can do it here, but I think what happens is you end up putting more pressure on your general fund budget.
Don't we have a surplus in general fund here?
And you guys already took a whack at the legal line on the other
Yeah,
side.
then we have a contingency, not a contingency.
I thought we had some money.
What is it called?
You have fund balance of $420,000 in this.
So we can't take fund balance from that to offset the $28,000?
You could have an asymmetrical budget.
Okay.
But, I mean, I think what Mike was proffering was make a less conservative revenue estimate, and instead of taking 28, I just have down here 16,520, but, you know,
I would even be willing to give the 5,000 legal back, and just make 2 cuts for roughly $11,000. Assuming we're still in the range of where we think we might fall out.
and the only reason I'm not including it in the lines that are green are because they're linked. There are a lot of different links. Here. Sorry, yeah, it'd be 560, so it's still within the range of where TIF would end up. You know, it's more on the higher end than lower end, but it's in the ballpark.
Okay.
You know, so we would do a 494, the budget would be 494, you know, I'll just put negative 11, 520 for the purposes of, yeah, in that zone.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
Yep.
So that's a 494, Meg, that's 494,071 on the TIF budget, which is a little ugly on the screen, but for the purposes, we'll get it right for the.
Okay. All right, what else do we have to touch?
That was it, right?
I wanna make sure, hold on.
We get all 4 bullet items.
Yeah.
And so bonding,
Reword the
zero.
questions to be a little more clear. I don't know how we can, but it
I'm
needs to be
gonna
tried.
just do it differently. Whoever's gonna do it, gonna have to give me an, okay? I think what we'll do is we're just gonna go make the motions like we did last time. I don't care what the rough one, who cares? Okay.
There's one, wait, what are we gonna do with the Board of Ed? Right, do we have an action somewhere to resolve about the 2.5 million medical that we pushed over this year? Or a
Well,
portion of it?
I think we're all pretty sure the budget's gonna fit. Because they're not getting the phase. So that gives them a couple weeks to get another legal opinion.
Okay.
And then we'll figure it out.
Are they gonna get it? They believe they have a
They
legal
believe it.
opinion.
Yeah.
I think we have.
Oh,
Uh-oh, so we put money back in that line?
Put money back in that
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Well, it is like, or do we talk to someone at the state that manages?
well, okay, let me ask
I
you
don't know what that
something. Why do we wanna do that?
Because we cut everyone else's budget, you're laying off in all the other areas, but the school board's staying intact, it's just not fair. Just not fair, exactly across
So
the
what
town.
you wanna do then is give them back their medical in the amount of how much?
No, I didn't say, I said, make them,
4.59.
make them pay some more of them. No, it was 2.5.
It's whatever we were going to give this year.
Yes.
Not what we've given in the past.
I thought it
So
was-
give them back
I thought-
their whatever, 2.5.
Or half,
I don't care. Their mill rate goes up.
go down.
I mean, their MBR goes up.
No, because it's still underneath the medical one.
No, their MBR will go up. From the year, from last year.
You keep their MBR at what it was last year, but they're paying more for medical.
See, I don't think that's allowed. I think that's what I think that is.
No, because you.
But it said that you couldn't do it on money that's prior, given to them prior.
It wasn't given
So
to
in
you.
other years, we couldn't, that's why we can't say the 4.5. we've given them something in the past. We have not given them the money yet, that we said we were gonna give them this year.
818,000.
That's what we're talking about, if we had to take something. And listen, I'm not a proponent of taking it.
Me neither.
I just wanna understand the legal ramifications of it before we make any decision.
All right,
If
well,
we could do
that's
it without taking it, I'd be fine with that. But we need to know legally, if we're gonna have to cut more, is that even an option on the table?
But how are we gonna cut, how does that mean we're going to cut it? If we're taking it out of our budget and giving it back to them, raising their budget up,
You don't raise your budget.
well, then we're gonna turn around and tell them, okay, now
It's
you
an
gotta
expense
cut.
to them, they would have to cut their budget someplace else.
Oh.
And their NPR would stay the same. Yes, it's ugly, Lori, but it's
Oh,
another option
What's the difference with losing
of how
two
much,
police
how we
officers,
need
with
to
losing
cut.
two people at
I
public
get
works,
it,
we're
I
losing?
get it,
I
get it.
still don't understand why we can't do what Patty described, because it's
Yes.
money that hasn't even been given.
We gotta get the legal opinions, and what Sean is giving.
I think we
was
can,
that we
but-
can't.
This is money that we didn't give them last year, we gave it to them this year.
Again, none of us are
Feel like you're
lawyers.
taking
This
it away.
is July
What do I
one
do?
we're giving it technically,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Yes.
So July one hasn't even passed, nor has it come yet, so I don't
I
understand.
agree, but we're arguing
Yeah.
something we can't.
We haven't given them anything because we don't have enough for the budget.
Yeah, that's why it
We're all
makes
agreeing
no
on the same
sense to
thing.
me.
All right, are we ready to do this? Boys, gentlemen,
Not what we're looking for.
accounting weirdos, or whatever?
So to Patty's question, are you calling somebody? Are you, who's?
I don't know, I'm gonna, hoping Jason's gonna pick up the slack and figure it out. I don't know, we'll figure it out tomorrow.
Well, if Jason's finished the audit, I'd say yes, if he hasn't, then no.
Jason is nowhere near close to doing the audit, considering we have all this other crap going on. At least it's over there. in the end.
Jason alone will finish the audit, and we need to have.
And what, we're gonna hire Mandy back to do this stuff? Let's move on, it's getting late, and we're so much close to being done. All right, so, we need to do a motion. Now, what's the key word?
Start with TIF.
TIF? All right, so someone make a motion to move the TIF budget of 2026 in the amount of $494,071. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Tom seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, no other discussion, correct? Correct. Okay.
Go to capitals.
All right, capitals, capitals is lovely. All right, so, does anybody, Penny, wanna make the motion?
Nope.
Oh, God, okay. Lori will make the motion, because she wants to get out of here, to, send to referendum the capital budget in the amount of, which column am I looking at here?
He's got it highlighted.
$899,126.11. And just for the record, capital has nothing to do with a person's taxes. Okay, next. Oh, I did it first, you did a second.
I'll second.
Mike seconds. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, so everybody's for it except for Patty, she's opposed. Okay, Patty.
How would you like to handle that we've eliminated the bonding?
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that.
Just,
So,
we
well, let's
take a
just-
motion to eliminate the bonding and
Yeah,
just.
yeah, yeah. So I'll make a motion to eliminate the bonding. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mike second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, okay, yes, anything?
Operating budget.
Well, what's the others?
Okay, we're at the operating budget. You ready?
So expense is the first number here?
So that's the.
That's it, yeah.
Okay. So I'll make a motion for an operating budget of $61,413,831. Patty seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
And then you have a mill rate.
Oh, yep. So the projected mill rate,
And from a timing standpoint, we've got a timeline that you have to get a budget to publish, so we can get it in the paper, and that's a very, very tight timeline. Do we wanna talk mill rate tonight, or do we have another meeting to discuss?
No, there's nothing
What is
there
there
to
to
talk
talk
about.
about? We'll talk about it. What is there?
There's nothing to talk about.
We're not gonna vote on it tonight.
it's a
It's
proposal.
a proposed mill rate.
Yeah.
No way does it get set till after the budget.
Don't we have to set, do we have to set this to the selectmen first, or go right to referendum?
Oh, this goes right to referendum. Can you just go down and see how much my taxes on my asset will be now,
Like,
that I will pay?
we have to go to selectmen?
Could you raise that screen up?
I think the selectmen are the ones that have to put everything in the paper to,
Right.
to get the next referendum. So effectively, they gotta have some information, because part of the budget's gonna be published, or all the budget's gonna be.
So we have to, we're voting to send this to the selectmen to send out for public notice for the referendum would be the,
We don't ever vote like that.
we've never had this before.
We've said it, we've had it almost, but we've never voted to send it to.
Every
the
time we've done a
selectmen,
budget, we send it to the selectmen. before
Yeah, but
the
this is a referendum.
I'm not sure, this is new territory for all of us, except for Connor, in my career here.
Well, pull it out of your hat, what do you think, what do you think?
I mean, I guess, do you wanna say something regarding 20.79?
I think based on the record you mean, or,
Based on the numbers we did,
well,
it's,
everybody knew that last time was 21.77.
Yeah.
So you might as well just say with a
Making a
projected
proposal.
mill rate.
Proposed, yeah.
like,
Projected.
Projected mill rate of 20.79.
We have a so move.
second.
So moved, Con?
Yeah.
Con, so moved. Lori, Con, mill rate.
Give us
You can. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. All right. So, Meg, I have some letters I'm gonna have to scan and send to you in order to put on the records, or put on the minutes. Same thing, so, yeah, public input. Go ahead, sir, I'm gonna stick with 2 minutes. Okay?
Okay, Lee Russo, 407 Elmwood Drive again. And Lori, I sort of have to take a little exception to what you said regarding townspeople being focused on their self, and not the town.
I'm only using, go ahead, I'll leave that, I'm sorry.
Well, we expect the town, the people who run the town, to accommodate the homeowner and the population of the town. Last I recall, we had the average income for the town was about $78,000. So, when I hear you say, let's bite the bullet, we can't afford $99 a month, I'm to tell you that as a police officer, I saw many an elderly person choosing between food and their medicine. So $99 for everybody here may not be anything, but to the old people who are trying to hang on to their home, $99 a month would probably push them to the point where they would have to sell and get out of town, okay? And then on top of that, we have to look at the national picture, the inflation that's going on. You know, I think price of eggs is still pretty high. Somebody promised they'd lower price of eggs. So with all that said, this question of raising taxes needs to be considered carefully. And my only option here is to phase it in, and I think that's the only reasonable way to do it. I understand there's complications there, but you need to take into consideration the elderly population here. We certainly have a pretty good amount of old folks. That's it.
Any other public input? Yep.
Hi, good evening. I'm Josh Nesovich, 35 Fairfield Drive. I just made some notes, so if you don't mind, I'll read through that, and I'll try to do it in 2 minutes. Having been a quiet and complicit member of the community for 10 years, and having my youngest daughter go through the public school system, now a freshman, I've sat and I've watched, and and like many people in the community, just been quiet about it. Trusted you guys to do what you do, and a few times I've spoken up in the past where the Board of Ed's been asked to come through year over year with a 0 increase. And the most recent time that I've gotten sort of a little vocal or made any kind of comment or conversation is when Chris tried to pass, or pitch rather, the pay by the bag garbage idea. And I think that cost him his position personally. And as I've kind of listened to the last couple sessions, I wanted to educate myself as to what was going on, and having thus far lived in ignorance is bliss, I find a little bit of this disturbing overall. There's to go all this time with no increase, and to be surprised at public response to what I'll call jumping off the cliff of taxes. Yeah, you're right, it's only maybe $100 a month. And to some other people's points, many of us, that's not the end of the world. But to try to do it all at once and not consider doing it in phases, though painful as it may be, and as challenging as it is, I think we do a disservice. We do a disservice to the community who spoke fairly loudly about, all things considered, relative to their position on what was position, or proposed, I'm sorry. I don't envy what you're doing. I spoke to some of you during the break, and I, having 24 years in executive and management positions, and dealing with this on a much smaller scale, I know it's not easy to just decide how do you manage and how do you cut and how do you make people happy at the same time. To assume that it's going to fail before you present your amendments now, I think you also do a disservice to yourself and the community. The position of, well, everyone's just gonna shit on it, and pardon my French, and just be negative about it, and there's no win here. There is. I think there's an opportunity for the Board of Finance to do a better job in the way that you represent your information, that you make your information available to the public. As a fairly savvy person, I find it very difficult and hard to find how to, to get the information and to decipher the information. And I deal with P&Ls for a living. I'm on the internet for a living. I'm on social media for a living. And still, I spend probably 4 hours today, just today, before we got here, going through the budget, going through and locating the information, trying to find ways to contact you guys. Because I'd love to get more and more and get more information. I think that the community wants to participate. but at the same time, it's unclear, it doesn't, you gotta vote no across the board, I think you're absolutely right, you gotta vote across the board no because they rejected the general principle without understanding how some of the aspects actually didn't impact their tax base. And I would say to you that that is your sign that you didn't paint the picture well enough for people to understand it. It wasn't that there was just this general disdain or animosity to the position, but rather a lack of understanding of the questions you were asking. So, I appreciate the late hour, and I apologize for sort of grandstanding and ranting, but I think many of us in the community, myself included, having spent a decade at this point as a member of the community, the time to be quiet is over. They have something to say. I would caution you on how you interpret the message. Because what I heard, my interpretation of some of the comments made, as we've gone through the process this evening, I think there's some things that were lost in translation. And be empathetic, not dismissive, not pretentious. There are people that this will hurt. This will be a struggle. They will have to make hard choices. Should we have done this more gradually over the last 10 years? Probably. We're here now. It's not.
Okay, I'm just gonna interrupt you.
Yes, ma'am.
When you say, should we have done this gradually over the last 10 years? Two different things.
Sure.
The thing that's driving the tax now is the assessment on your house. That's what's driving it. So for you to say we should have raised taxes over the last 10 years, I get it. But what is driving this thing right now, and everybody all around, is the state telling towns, you have to reassess your properties every 5 years, and COVID didn't help.
No.
It did not help. So, and we sat here for 3 months, maybe even longer, every 2 days a week, no one was sitting on this audience. No one, okay? We had a public hearing, the only people that showed up were the town employees, no one else.
We had 10 non-committee members this year. 10.
So I appreciate that you wanna get involved, I love it, but I would hope to see that people were here at the meeting all the time. I get it, that website stinks, I can't even find stuff, I get it. But it only takes a phone call to Chris at the town clerk, and he can get you anything. He could probably even get you a bag of cookies. So you just have to I know, I was there 10 years ago asking and saying all the same things that everybody else has said out there. I was. I didn't like it, I'm sitting here now. Because you can't do anything out there, and you can't do anything on Facebook. You need to get involved. And I appreciate that you're involved, I really do.
My only response is that 10 years ago when I bought in town, you know, it was a buyer's market, right? The interest rates were low, there was plenty of supply, not nearly as much demand. The bubble had burst not long before that. And COVID especially flipped the market on us, right? And having friends in real estate, the problem that everyone's had up to, and especially since COVID, is there's no inventory. So that drives prices. Interest rates have come back up, and we'll probably never see interest rates like we saw.
And I think you also have to realize too, even with COVID and even after COVID, okay, there were challenges here in town where we lost a lot of revenue because of rental cars, okay? People could not pay their bills. So why would we want to raise taxes over the last 10 years? I mean, it's a bit, I get what you're saying, I get it, but I also get the other part of it too. And most of my smart ass comments are answer to him, not to the audience, but now you know that.
As a member of the audience, though, I can only tell you perception.
Well, I'm okay
And
with,
so-
I'm okay with how you perceive me, I really am, because I've been here more times than you have. And whoever perceives me, like I said, I'm gonna die.
Yep.
We're all going to die, okay? But I am going to go to my grave knowing that I did the very best that I did with the most honest intent possible. That's it. So I appreciate your comments.
And I appreciate it as well. And the only thing I would like to say to rebuttal, if I could, is that I don't know you personally, I have no personal opinion or anything against you. What I'm suggesting in all of my rhetoric there is that there are opportunities.
I understand, I get it. I've heard the speech before, she's tough.
It'll be
I've
taken
heard
into
it, I've heard it.
consideration.
And I have been nice, but when you are land-basted, time and time and time again, I'm sorry, you're the man who got stuck in. You stepped up and started talking. I'm all done getting land-basted, so I'm fighting back. I am. I appreciate it. I really appreciate the fact that you were here. I appreciate the fact of what he said. I hope to see you more often. And if you sat here all night, so when you're on Facebook carousing and reading, I hope you set the record straight.
I was
Some
on
of
a
the
Zoom call in the
misinformation.
beginning, but I couldn't actually chime in for public. It wouldn't allow me to unmute, so I drove, left dinner and drove
Yeah,
back.
I appreciate it. I love it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much.
So they have money and rate.
Anybody else in the audience here? Anybody else want to talk? Sure, come on in.
Kurt, hold on one second, we've got one more public speaker.
Be honest, I've lived in this town since 1988.
Oh, yeah, name and address.
Kinsinger, 43 Street. And I got my house in 88 when new prices were really high. And we paid, at that time, more than the house was worth. We were divorced and I couldn't let my house go because it wasn't worth as much as I paid for it. 10 years later, in 98, I decided to keep the house. And since then, I have a daughter that went through the school system. And we used, the rec department for summer school and everything. And at that time, in 2011, it was only $100 then too. And my parents were nice enough to pay it for me because I could not afford it, being a single mom. And now that I'm a senior, and although I work for the state of Connecticut and I get a pension, there's a lot of people that don't get a pension. And it's hard for me even to make ends meet now. And I have a daughter who's 25 and she can't afford, she works full time and she can't afford anything to move anywhere, even if she wants to, because the cost of living is so high. And going up even $100, which every year seems like, oh, granted I get 2% in Social Security and 2% increase in the state of Connecticut, which equals maybe $65. You guys consider going up 100 because we're having a 30% increase, just like the 30% tariffs that the government, the president is putting on us. And for most of you, granted, and for older people, it does mean a lot. I have friends who can't afford where they live and are on food stamps because they don't know what to do. So $100 to someone like that is a lot of money.
Thank you. Kurt. Oh, go ahead. Kurt's gotta wait.
But you wanna do the online first?
No, he can wait.
Robert Shepherd, 154 Spring Street, Windsor Locks. I wanna thank all of you for everything that you've done the last couple of months. Your faces like mine, we probably should have come out starting in February and March. But things have changed. This has actually galvanized quite a bit in the community. You're seeing people voting in numbers that you haven't seen in a long time. People may have misunderstood certain questions on, no matter how much the education was put out there, not everybody's savvy, not everyone pays attention to detail, but they do react to emotions. There is a large aging population in town here that cannot afford increases. No matter what we do with the phase-in, non-phase-in, kicking the can down the road too far, there's repercussions for everything we do. There's always an action with it, a reaction. But keep in mind, regardless of the phase-in, not phase-in, the last referendum was defeated. You guys represent people that voted, each one of you in. You have constituents, people that personally voted for you for whatever reason it is, whatever you've done for them in the past. The point is, ignoring the policy and possibly compromising on a phase-in may just end up with another defeated
Okay,
referendum.
let me just interrupt you again.
Okay.
Compromising on a policy, there is no such thing as a policy, okay? Just so you know that. When you
Okay.
say, when you were compromising on a policy, that's not true. There's no policy. It's a track that we can take.
Okay,
Go ahead.
let me take a step back then. In not entertaining the possibility, you've all said your opinion and said at this time, you'll pass not considering it and putting the referendum forward. It's a high probability to get defeated again. So a point, it's a push and shove, a repeat of what year was it there was 7 or 8? 98. Cost more money on referendums at the end of the day either way, correct?
I wasn't here.
But they do cost money, correct?
Oh, they cost a lot of money.
So it's a little push and shove here, it's negotiation at a poker table. Sometimes you gotta give a little to get a little. Maybe for the basic of the public, a 2-year phase-in would be satisfactory enough to get people to vote for what it is you're presenting. Just consider.
Okay, so just so you know.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm talking about tonight, but I'm on fire.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
The only people who have come right in here right now, tonight, and said they wanted to phase in, you're looking at them. We don't govern by Facebook.
I'm not speaking.
Okay? We don't. If people wanted some, they can very easily write a little letter and send it to here and it gets to us. We do not govern by Facebook.
And I'm not even referencing online.
But I'm just saying, but this is,
But Lori, the only.
but you're the only one who said phase in.
But let me be
Everybody
quite
else is
clear.
online
Ms.
saying
Lori,
phase
can I
in.
please finish?
Well, you can finish, but
The number one
don't be
thing
surprised.
with the misconstruing on those referendum questions, the later ones beyond number 1 were definitely defeated down because of the emotions attached to the first.
But we understand that.
And
We
if
get
you
it.
understand that, you gotta present it with every referendum going forward, the same knee-jerk reaction may happen again. There is a portion of the population that does want to phase it.
And
Mike-
again,
Mike is the one person that I would not assume that would actually be the first to acknowledge that he was considering it. Fair enough?
Yeah, I don't wanna take what you said out of context.
No.
I mean, at this, where we sit tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does weigh on my mind.
Which I understand.
I voted how I voted, and that's.
Which I get.
And
I get it's
gotta live
personal
with that.
preference.
So I gotta, respond to my constituents, but
Yes.
it does weigh on my
I
mind.
understand.
And hopefully I express that this evening, during the.
I listen, we all have a hard job, so I understand. I just wanna point that out. Okay? That's it.
thanks.
Thank you very much.
Your thing will get sent to the secretary and it'll get attached to the minutes,
I
okay?
appreciate it.
Kurt, anybody else in here? Kurt?
Kurt, you're unmuted.
Can't hear you. Kurt?
Great.
We
Kurt,
can't
gotta-
hear you.
Gotta speak in your microphone, Kurt.
Not really.
Barely.
I just want to thank the board for their time, for the volunteers, and we appreciate it as young people, and we don't have to go through this too many more time. I would just say that it's a heartfelt time, and to go with that, before,
up, we can't hear you.
I just wanted to thank you for your time tonight.
Right. Okay. Any other public input? Board input?
Yeah. I wanna say that I really do appreciate everybody's comments and everybody coming here and speaking tonight. I wish there was 100 people here speaking tonight. I did hear what the vote said, but I also hear the people that didn't go vote, cause they don't get involved, but they have opinions on it too. I represent all those people. I don't only represent the 1,000 people that voted no. I also represented the 500 people that voted yes, and all the people that didn't vote. So we're doing the best we can with the information we have and presenting what we want. We're not trying to be disrespectful, we're not trying to ignore people, but we're doing what we needed after a long, long budget season.
Okay. Todd? Anybody else? Mike?
No, just thank you to those that attended, both, you know, in person and online. You know, as always, appreciate the comments.
And I just wanna say, we have a lot of great services in town, so I'd be happy to talk to you and give you a couple of names of people that can help anybody who needs help with food, fuel, etc. Because I always recommend to people, go see Heidi, start there, and there's a lot of programs, so.
There's no need for anyone, anywhere, to go hungry. There is no need of it. Her and I have worked doing community dinners, food share, everything. There is no excuse for it, none. There is plenty of food. You just gotta know who to ask, and she's sitting down in the lot. Really, and that's for anybody who's listening.
Plus seniors that are having a hard time, you go to the tax office and get a tax.
They get tax exemption, yeah.
Okay, so that's always allowed too. So
And
there's a
that's
board
based-
right out there that explains it to everyone.
Peter, is that based on income or anything?
It would be the assessor,
Okay.
Assessor does that.
but it is income based, age and income based, so, and there's a certain amount of time to apply. Unfortunately, it just ended, but usually February to March, not May 15th.
And just to make a mention, I remember getting a divorce, and I remember living in a house I couldn't afford. And I remember going to the town of Windsor and begging them for fuel, but I made too much money. I begged them, and I said, I will promise you, I swear to God, I will pay you back. I don't know how she did it, she got me the voucher. I went back, maybe 2 years later, and I paid them back, because I could have never done it without them. So there are services available.
There are, but they aren't for people like me. I get a state pension, I've always had a halfway decent job. I've been lucky, I've been a single mom without child support. And I even called working for the state called United Way and have been denied any service whatsoever. Because I make too much money. And I don't really make that much money considering what I did for the state of Connecticut. You served 12,000 people in this town. I served over 18,000 firefighters by myself in the state of Connecticut in 365 plus fire departments for over 30 years. So I am lucky for what I do have from the state, but there are a lot of people that aren't as lucky as I am.
Well, I just don't want people to feel that it's hopeless, because there are services that help people, and there's more services now than there were when I got divorced. So, but anyways, can I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Patty makes a motion, all those in favor? Aye.